I don't think OpenAI will be around in 5 to 10 years. They're going to burn through all the cash and they're not going to have a functional business model. Microsoft's just run by a bunch of marketers and they're losing a lot of their legacy engineers that know what's going on.
What would be the technical or ethical red line that would make you say, I'm completely done with Windows?
If there was an ethical or red line, we've already passed it long ago.
Just for fun, I'm trying this vibe coding stuff. Like, there's a lot of hate on it. What is your stance on it?
Vibe coding is a thing, but it'll never be a thing for the masses. Nope, this is blasphemy. You gotta install Arch, otherwise you're not a Linux user. I just need to use my computer and I just want it to work the way I want it to work. Microsoft isn't competent enough to lock me out of their system.
Hello and welcome to a new episode. Today we have Chris Titus with us. Most of you know him from his channel Chris Titus Tech and his widely used WinUtil tool. With a career in IT spanning back to 2003, Chris transitioned into content creation in 2019, where he has since become a go-to resource for demystifying technical concepts. Just in his main YouTube channel, he has more than 690 videos and more than 100 million views. His content mostly revolves around explaining technology, helping people through technical concepts, and helping people do more conscious choices. He is the creator of widely used tool WinUtil. It has more than 45,000 stars on GitHub. This tool single-handedly helped thousands of Windows users to achieve a better installation, better privacy, and better security. Today, we are diving into everything from the current AI revolution to good old-fashioned tech fundamentals. Without further ado, let's welcome him. Hello, Chris. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, how are you doing today?
Doing good. It's morning time, so I'm always a little groggy in the morning, but yeah, it should be a fun one. I can't wait to dive into some of these topics.
Do you do breakfast at least?
Oh yeah. I ate with my daughter about an hour ago, so
Okay.
I'm not too bad, and I got a little espresso here.
By the way, for those who don't know, we have 9 hours difference, so it's becoming night in here. So yeah, okay. So my first question, you've been in IT sector since 2003 and you've seen the industry change a lot. For a young person starting their IT career today, what are the 3 biggest traps that they should avoid in your opinion?
I think the biggest trap is just hyper focusing on one thing. I often find like, hey, I want to learn Linux and I only want to learn Linux. I'm like, well, you got to learn Windows as well. You got to be pretty versatile in that regard. The second thing is probably security and networking, both physical networking in the form of just understanding how networking works as far as subnetting and just the basics, but also just like people networking as well. A lot of people in IT, I don't know how to say this politely, but I've met a lot of IT people that just weren't very personable or not able to actually talk to other humans well. And it's really important to be able to do that. So don't just hyper focus on the technology, but also there's a people element to it as well.
I've heard from many people, like, even though you're good at what you're doing, unless you're personable, like unless you're good with your team, they care about that a lot too, apparently.
Yeah. And just talking to the end user, being able to chat with somebody or your boss, it's an important skill.
Yeah, I mean, you are very smiley, kind of personable guy. How did you develop that?
I grew up always loving computers, and I was a very big introvert, so it did not come naturally.
Yeah.
My brother is the exact opposite. So my brother was always the outgoing one. But as I got into the work realm, I realized real fast, I really need to get better at talking to people. So I forced myself to essentially get uncomfortable and learn the skill, because it did not come naturally to me, and I had to continually do that. Honestly, when I started YouTube, that helped a lot. Making YouTube videos was it helped me articulate myself a lot better. So in my professional career, even if my YouTube channel didn't take off, I wouldn't regret making it, because I was able to actually talk to people a lot better. I'm able to speak a lot clearer and also just articulate my thoughts better.
So it is a skill set that people can learn. I mean, some people have this kind of limiting belief around this, I think. I mean, I was an introvert too. I also had to learn it. You said I made a decision and it happened, right? So you didn't maybe know exactly how to. It's more about making that kind of decision to get better at something.
Yeah, and for me, probably the big turning point in my life, I was always very technically adept, and I was able to get through a lot of really complex subjects, actually technical problems in my career. But when I worked for a really big company, it was a Fortune 500 company, and I did all their IT, I would realize I was working so much, and I was like, this doesn't feel great, and I don't like this. And that's when I kind of transitioned. I was like, I'm looking for something else other than just working for a big company. And that was back in
Mm-hmm.
2016, so that was 10 years ago now.
Mm-hmm. And then 2019 to YouTube, I guess, at that point.
Yeah, I actually started YouTube in September of 2018 was when I
2018.
like was yeah, it was right at the end of 2018. I started uploading videos every single day for 365 days. I was like, I'm just going to do a YouTube video every day, and I was still working a full 40 hours at my work. So I would do that, come home, eat dinner with the family, and then I would go, okay, I'm not going to go to sleep until I produce a YouTube video.
Oh, okay. So, but in your mind, you wanted that kind of transition. So
Hmm.
that's why you pushed yourself. So it was
Yeah.
deliberately. You weren't like, okay, I'm just shooting it for just for fun, but you wanted to be a content creator full time.
Yeah. I was like, I see all these kids doing well on YouTube, and I was
Yeah.
like, well, just like a typical narcissist or or whatnot, where I was just like, well, I know more than these kids. God, I've been doing this for years and years. Well, let me start making videos. And then as I started making videos, I'm like,
Yeah.
there's a lot more to this. I'm not very good at this. I'm gonna
Yeah.
just keep doing it until I get good at it.
And then you became inspiration to some of those kids, including me, by the
Yeah,
way.
yeah, and that's awesome. That's awesome, and
Yeah.
I love that people have done that and taken and learned things and said,
Yeah.
yeah, I know more than this old man. I'm gonna do my own thing.
Yeah, I guess the cycle goes on.
Yeah,
Speaking
I
of
love it.
kids, a common question I get from my young audience is about university. You have a long history in the field, so if you were 18 today, would you go to the university for computer science, or would you trust self-education and certifications? Is the degree still a requirement, or just nice to have at this point?
Ooh, it's a great question. I would say I it depends on where you live, and it
Yeah.
depends
Yeah.
on the education you can get, because
Hmm.
some people do better in a formal education standard. Here in the States, our education system's a little broken, meaning you could put yourself in massive amounts of debt, and that could put you in a very poor starting spot in life. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to someone here, where I would say a traditional like trade school, it wouldn't put you in as much debt, and it gets you into a job with a certificate, and it would be a better starting spot for them. But if you can get like a subsidized education and you're not putting yourself in massive amounts of debt, I still think there's value in the traditional education. And if you learn well in that setting, then that's fine. I never have, though. I've always done better. Just give me the book. I'm going to learn it. And then I'm going to just go take a test and get a certification.
Hmm.
So I've always been kind of a non traditional guy, and that's how I learn. But it just depends on the person and also like the circumstances around it. I don't want to see kids put themselves like I was looking for my daughter because she's going to be in high school now, and she's my youngest, and her school here, if she was to go for computer science, she'd be like going to like a prestigious university here would be about $360,000 worth of debt, which is
Hmm.
just an insane amount of
Hmm.
money, over a quarter of a
Yeah.
million at least. And I'm like, man, you better be going for and making a ton of money. And in the IT field, it's just that piece of paper doesn't mean that much money.
Hmm. Hmm.
You
I
get a
see.
lot of placement, especially as someone young. So that's where it's a healthy balance there,
Yeah.
where I can see value in both, but it depends.
I'm asking this also. I'm from Turkey. It's the system is different, but system is broken here as well. You don't get to debt, but it's more about time issue. You go to like for 4 years, you go to university. Yes, okay. In
Hmm.
Turkey, you don't have to get into debt to do that, but still 4 years. 4 years is
Hmm.
a lot of time when you think about it. Especially, I've read an article a couple of months ago. It was saying, the skills that you learn in university after 18 months, like it's just around more than a 1 year or something, it's obsolete. It can
Yeah.
become obsolete. So, and I also know many university teachers, like, or professors or whatever, they're not as that flexible. For example, I've been meeting with different young students around here in Turkey, and I've been asking, what are your thoughts? Like, what are your professors' thoughts about this AI coding, vibe coding, and all that stuff? Many of them looking at it very negatively, right? But we've been seeing, for example, we are going to talk about that too, Linus Torvalds praising vibe coding in some sort of sense, or even the creator of Redis, he's been like promoting it, saying nice things about it. So yeah, I mean, 4 years is a lot of time.
It is, and it depends on what you want to go for. I think from a trade skill perspective, it can be very worthwhile to get those base things, like learning the traditional, hey, this is how subnets work and those types of things. But as far as like if you want to go in for programming, that's a kind of a tough sell in 2026 because programming, I learned traditional programming in the early, or actually it would have been mid to late 90s. So this would have been over 30 years ago when I did programming. And then when I graduated high school, going into, college and those types of further education, I never really did it because I just didn't like school. And I went briefly for about 6 months, and I was just like, I'm not spending this much money. I'm going to just learn it and go do it. And then instead of going into programming back then, I ended up going into traditional like IT infrastructure and learning how to do like rack and stacks and build out businesses. And that's where I kind of went until probably just recently, in the past 5 years, 6 years, I started really getting into programming again. And I was like, wow, this has come such a long ways to where traditionally you'd have to read a book and then there's all these other references, maybe even get on Stack Overflow. It was very much a more arduous and hard process to follow, 10 plus years ago. But now getting into programming is so much more easy to do, especially for someone that's not traditionally trained.
Yeah.
I still think there's value in taking 1 or 2 courses, though. Like, you don't necessarily need to go get a full career and get a piece of paper at the end of it, but just learning the basics of programming. And then once you're going, okay, I understand this, then going, okay, well, I'm going to make a project and then like use that in a way. And I think that's really the magic. That's where you really start to learn things.
I think people underestimate this, but it can get better. Like, the vibe coding, the models that we're using these days, or the systems rather, can get better. I feel like it's going to be more like from now on and into the more future years, it's going to, you're going to be the designer of the system. You're going to be more like a planner, and it's going to do the work for you most of the time. But so, okay, I was going to ask this question a bit later,
Sure.
But I want to ask it now since we've come to this. I've seen you on your live streams. You're using Windsurf, and I don't know if you've used anything else before for building software or like helping you at the very least. Windsurf, like vibe coding. When I look at the articles in Slashdot, Ars Technica, and many other platforms, any AI new, like there's a lot of hate on it, and some people love it, some people hate it. What is your stance on it? Like, what do you think of AI?
Yeah, AI is amazing for me. Like, I'm able to do things that entire teams of 10 or 20 people can't do. And I can do it faster than an entire business, which is kind of insane. But I have a like unique skill set to where I understand frameworks. I understand a lot of what the structure of code should look like. And I do a lot of code review. For WinUtil, I get, we're over like 200 contributions on that project alone, and I have over like I think it's about 100 repositories now across the open source ecosystem. So I get a lot of people submitting code to me every single day, probably every single hour, and a lot of my time is reviewing others' code, and I know what good code looks like. That's the difference between, like, you use the term vibe coding. I almost don't like to say that anymore, because someone without any knowledge of what proper structure looks like or what framework to use for certain tasks, they're just going to always suck. I don't think vibe coding will ever get to the point where you're like, hey, make this awesome program for me, and then it just does it. No, I don't think that'll ever be a thing. But if you know what pieces need to look like to have for the framework or the scaffolding for your project, and you know enough, you will be able to get there with AI assistance so you can achieve way more than you ever could have in a way shorter period of time. But I would say, at least here, where of all the people I've met, probably about 5% of the people fall into this category where they can learn enough to where they learn the frameworks, they learn this types of thing. But the average person, vibe coding is never going to be a
Mhm.
thing
Well, it's
unless
going to be an
they
easier
really.
thing to get to that 5%, maybe, don't you think? Like
I
people,
think yes, the barrier of entry is
yeah,
going to be lowered. You're not going to
yeah,
have to learn 2-3 years of programming and like, hey, what's object oriented? Hey, when am I
mhm,
going to use like these types of different like pointers and um, memory allocation? And there's a lot of things that go into uh, just understand like stack and heap and all these other more complex topics. You could probably get away with not learning that, but you're still going to have to learn the basics to
yeah,
be able to produce good code. Because here's what happens when you have a vibe coded project from someone that doesn't know anything.
mhm,
They can't clean up the code, and the
mhm,
code themselves ends up becoming unmaintainable. So what ends up happening is you get this project that kind of works, but they can never clean it up and make it really succinct and just have it nice. It's always going to kind of fall apart the longer it goes on. But if you use AI assistance in a proper way, you can clean up that code. And just to give you a recent example, in this past week or two of me, I started using I'm using F Sharp with Avlonian UI framework and
mhm,
using .NET. And these frameworks put together, well, while I was starting to code the front end of
mhm,
the application, because I was redoing WinUtil for like people that buy it and have an offline executable, I wanted to make sure it ran faster and it would directly interface without having to go through PowerShell. And when I did this, what ended up happening with the code was uh, it wanted to hard code like all the hex values for the colors, which is fine, I guess. You can sit there and adjust all the colors. Okay, this border over here is going to be this color, but that's not the proper way to do it. You should be using a dictionary and then referencing that dynamically. So then every single form you do, it automatically grabs that definition from the dictionary and then does it. But if you've never coded anything before, you wouldn't even know that that dictionary existed, and the vibe coding would give you so many inconsistencies and the application would feel
mhm,
disjointed or it
yeah,
wouldn't really go together or mesh. So that's a good example of vibe coding is a thing, but it'll never be a thing for the masses. It'll only
mhm,
be for the people that'll learn the fundamentals. You still got to learn the fundamentals, like, hey, what framework to use for this project, and then you'll be able
mhm,
to use it. So you still have to learn something.
yeah,
It'll
of
never
course,
be the end all be all tool like it's being marketed as today. So I
yeah,
stand in the middle of the ground where someone like the Primeagen is mostly anti AI, and I probably go along the probably follow. I don't know if you follow like Theo 3G.
yeah, mhm,
He's probably more along my mindset for where I think AI is going.
yeah. I mean, you're always gonna have to learn something, but I feel like barrier is lowering and lowering every
Yes,
time. Yeah.
yeah.
So,
The barrier is lower, but there's still gonna be a
of
barrier, and
course.
there always will be. Yep.
Yeah, of course. And I mean that wouldn't be fun otherwise. You
Yeah.
gotta
But
learn
I mean, I
some
will
stuff.
say I'm here for it, man. I love vibe coding. I love how fast you can do stuff, and if you do it in a good way, like you don't say build the whole program for me, or even build a function. It's more of, man, I really need it to look like this. Give me some ideas, and it'll spit out a bunch of code, and you'll be like, oh, these three options. This option's really interesting. Let's explore that. And then when you don't understand something, you can just ask.
Yeah.
Where if you asked a traditional programmer, they'd be like, ugh,
Yeah.
get out of here with that noob question. Go read the manual.
Yeah.
And AI is just like, well, that's an excellent question. Let me tell you all about it. So I love it from the learning. You can
Yeah.
learn a ton from AI, and it's not always right. But
Mm,
when you ask it a very specific question and you get references, you're going to
mm,
learn something, and
yeah.
it is fun. And that's the thing is, if you can make learning fun, you're going to learn a lot.
I also like I don't know as much as you do, but I just for fun I'm trying this vibe coding stuffs. And I actually created a bunch of web applications and whatnot. So one thing that I was doing, I did know back in the days before I started YouTube, I knew a little bit of front end and back end and writing APIs, but then I dropped it all together. So I don't remember much. So what ended up happening is I'm asking, I want to code a project like this. What are your recommendations, and tell me why? Like, what kind of stack do you recommend? And then it just shows you different stacks and what would be the advantages and disadvantages. And then I can decide from there. And yeah, and I'm learning as I'm doing that, because the next project that I'm going to do, I'm going to know what kind of stuff that I can use or I used from before, or maybe for the next project, I will want to use something else. But yeah, I'm glad that you also, you like AI and not on the hate train. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't
That's
have
amazing.
anything against hate train guys, by the way, and I'm sure they have their reason, but I don't like this stance. Like, there's a good news about like some company or like something doing some sort of productive thing, and then people hate on it. Like, I mean, come on, like, I mean, you can use it to your advantage too, in a sense.
It's hard to say. I think a lot of people, like what you just said of how you're using AI, is amazing. I think that's
Yeah.
great. And what happens is people can't find those use cases for them. So they
Mm.
just they go in, instead of asking, "Hey, what framework should I use for this application?" They go, "Write an application for a
Mm.
game that does, this and this."
Yeah.
And then just say go. And then of course they don't get a very good
Yeah.
result because they didn't ask the right question. And that's, I think, where some of this hate comes from, is they're just too broad and general with it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you ask a very targeted question and treat it like it's a programmer or someone that
Mm-hmm.
is traditionally trained, and you ask it very specific questions, it is very good. And I really like it for a tool. And I think of it as a tool in the belt. And I still double check it. I still do a lot of things, a traditional programmer would do. But to say just write it off, that blows my mind.
Yeah.
Especially, it's like, hey, you could do so much more, and you can.
Yeah.
It really opens up a world of possibilities, like you said, bringing that barrier lower, and it does lower that barrier. There's still a barrier, but it's quite a bit lower than it once
Yeah.
was.
And I think, these days, I feel like we're taking it for granted. This kind of technology has been in our life for, I don't know, like 2-3 years at this point. Right. So, and it's not just about vibe coding. When I think about what I'm doing now with our channel, we're doing a lot of videos, a lot of live streams, a lot of shorts. And, we're two people, basically, me and my editor. Right. And, but the thing is, I wouldn't be able to create this many content without I do use AI all throughout the production chain, and it just accelerates my life. I mean, obviously, I'm doing editing on many stuff, but maybe previously I would do something for 5 hours. Now I'm doing it for 30 minutes. I think that's an amazing thing. I don't know how to really describe it.
That's another good thing. Like, to give you a real world example of my use of it for my
Hmm.
channel, is I do a lot of live streams now. And what I end up using AI for the most, where I see the biggest benefit, even more so than the programming aspect, is I'll do a 3 hour long live stream, and
Hmm.
then nobody wants to. Well, some people want to watch a 3 hour
Yeah.
live stream, but hearing me yap for 3 hours, that's I get it. I
Yeah.
get it. Some people don't have that kind of time.
Yeah.
And I feed an entire, I just take all the subtitles from that, I feed it right into like Claude, and I say, hey, I need you to make all the key moments in this format, HH colon MM colon SS, and put it into a YouTube description for timestamping. And then it pulls up all the key moments of that live stream and then chops it up. So then when someone goes, I really liked it when Titus talked about this on live stream, where was that? And they
Yeah.
pull up the live stream. Oh, nice. There's all these chapters. There it is. And they can just click
Yeah.
on that key moment when I was talking, because it follows my train of thought, which is
Yeah.
one, really impressive, because I'm kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
Nailing me down's hard. But AI does a pretty good job of that, where I would have traditionally spent hours doing it.
Yeah.
Instead of
Yeah.
using hours, this takes me
Minutes.
5 minutes. Minutes. Just boom,
Yeah.
here's your chapters. I'm like, I don't care. I
Yeah.
welcome the new AI overlords.
I do the same thing you do too. We have also 2 3 hours live streams, and yeah, that's I'm. But when I think about it, I'm taking it for granted now. If it were to go away today, I would be, I think, extremely sad. And
Well, I
yeah,
did it before AI really hit the scene. So I was
really.
doing those edits and I was actually
Ah,
timestamping it.
yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
So like during the live stream, sometimes I would actually write down what was going on.
Wow.
And then I'd be like,
Okay.
"Ooh, let me mark that," or I'd have a little marker on my little
Yeah.
stream deck where I'd be like, "Okay, I gotta
The
mark
marker.
that." So I
Yeah.
gotta, okay, that's gonna be a new chapter. And then it kind of made the live streams a little more disjointed, and I
Yeah.
was really trying to do it, and I could never do it all the time because sometimes I
Yeah.
would just go off on a tangent. But it really has sped up that workflow
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah, yeah, great. So we're going to talk more about AI, but I want to get back to track on the
Hmm.
creator journey. So I looked at your LinkedIn. There's this, I don't exactly remember the name, but there's still a company, looks like at least, that you work for. So I would like to ask how much of your work currently is doing work for a company and how much is it for content creation? And would you recommend any other IT guy or tech enthusiast to be a YouTuber themselves?
That's a great question. So I still work for a company. I never quit. I still do, like, not full time anymore. I only work 1 day a week these days. And eventually that will probably wind down and they'll be like, we don't need that old man in the morning. He's been here so long. I think my boss actually said at the Christmas party, he's like, yeah, Titus has worked here for 17 years. I keep trying to get him to quit, but he just won't leave. And I'm like, well, you keep paying me, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, these days I'm about a day a week for the main job, and I still draw benefits and things from that. And I don't see myself quitting that anytime soon, but it could be this year, it could be 5 years from now. I don't know. It's just how whenever they feel comfortable letting me go, I'm good with that. As far as the content creation side of things, I don't think I view YouTube as a job. I don't think
Hmm.
it's a traditional job in the sense uh, it's hard to make enough with sponsorships and other stuff to justify it as a main profession. I
Hmm.
think of it more as a side hustle or something to do on the side while you do your work.
Hmm.
And for me, it helps me maintain perspective, and I've always liked working, two jobs. And I've done that even earlier in my career. Back in 2013, I worked two jobs where I was a lead engineer of a disaster recovery business where we would deploy satellites for different government agencies here in the States. And I would build out all their telephony work. So, emergency 911 and other services for disasters, a lot of their telephony stuff I built. And I would do that 3 days a week. And then the other 2 days, I would do traditional IT work, where it was just like traditional support or building out servers in that realm. So I've done it a lot of different ways. And I got to say, I've always liked to have that versatility, because the one thing that people don't tell you about content creation, and why I kind of warn people not to go into full-time content creation, is it's a very lonely job. Like when COVID hit and I was doing pretty much content creation full time, even though I was still working my day job whenever a call would come in. But let's be real, most people didn't really work during that period of time, or it was very sparse. uh, I was able to do more full time content creation. I found I got less done, even though I had more time to do it. And it was very isolating, where there was not that office type structure. And I imagine if you got really big and you had a bunch of people, like you have an editor, I think that's great. You have someone to talk to or bounce things off of. But I've never really had that. And I never really wanted that because I don't like managing people. It's a hard path, but it's a great, I don't want to discourage someone from trying it. I'd say do it, but also have a backup plan or something else
Hmm.
going on the side. I think having a couple things on the burner, so to speak, is a good thing.
I see. I think what you said about I had more time and couldn't do it. It's what they call Parkinson's law, where you have more time to finish something, you tend to slack off, and you just do it in the right of the deadline, I guess. And when
Yep.
it comes to loneliness, I can 100%. I'm doing full-time YouTube, by the way. My only income source right now is YouTube. I'm planning to do some other things as a side hustle, but my main job is YouTube, and I can say I'm pretty lonely.
Yeah, it's a hard job, and a lot of people don't realize. Like I'm as an older guy, you know, I'm not really old. I'm talking like I'm 80 years old over here, but no, I'm 40.
Yeah.
I'm in my
Yeah.
40s, so I'm
Yeah.
not that old. But I've actually had the perspective of being in the working. I already kind of know. I already have a body of work,
Mhm.
so it's I think a lot harder for the younger generation to get on. And you could probably speak better to this, but there's a lot of comments that happen, and the bigger you get, the more trolls and
Yeah.
people that come out and speak
Sure.
negative to you. So you got to
Yeah.
have to brace yourself for the negativity or the bad comments that you will
Yeah.
end up getting. And that's I think I thought it wouldn't bother me at all because I was like, whatever, I don't care.
Mhm.
But I'm telling you, it still sneaks in there every once in a while.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh, that hurts. Someone said I was balding the other day, and I was like, well, guess it is a little thinner up here. Yeah.
That's not that bad of a
Thanks,
comment.
random YouTube commenter.
Great, but it's not that bad, to be honest. I'm
Yeah,
sure
yeah,
you've
yeah, yeah.
seen the worst, right?
Oh yeah. I've
Uh,
seen worse. I'm like, well, I'm not doing so bad for 40,
yeah,
but damn, it
yeah.
still hurts.
No, I think you're looking young. You know, like I
Hey,
wouldn't say 40. Yeah,
hey, all right, I'll
yeah.
take it. Thank you.
I didn't know how old were you, but yeah. So the thing is, I mean, that's for the job. You know, that's if YouTube was like posted as a job description would be, you know, you gotta be able to brace yourself for toxic comments. I mean, however much you brace it. So it's more like this. I've seen, I'm following different YouTube creators throughout, not just in tech in general. There are great channels like John Yoshai, or maybe you've seen it. Like they do different interviews, Colin and Samir or whatever, with other YouTube creators. Because you know, I want to expand the job, so I'm thinking how I can do this more efficiently, how other creators are doing or whatever. I'm trying to think in that line, and I've heard from this every creator basically that I've watched, like most of them at some point they don't really look at the comments that much. You can't do it at one point because you have a lot of other things to do. Because you know, every other creator, when they start their YouTube journey, you're like really liking the comments, you're replying everyone, you're liking
Hmm.
everyone, whatever. You're more into
In
that
the beginning,
in the
it's
beginning.
amazing. Everyone's so positive, but I'm gonna tell you, I've done it for 8 years, and once you hit that critical mass, like I became, I think
Yeah.
the #1 Linux creator. I think I was past like level 1 techs and a few other people, and then when that happened,
Mm.
yeah, I would say the comments got really
Dark.
dark. Not as bad. I mean, these days most people are just, I don't do it very often in the videos, but I did notice like this transition a little bit where people are like, "Oh, well, he's kind of he's getting up there now. I think we need to take him down a couple pegs." But it's not as bad. Like there's plenty of other people I've talked to. I
Yeah.
remember like Linus Tech Tips and those guys. I've talked to them before, and I was like, "Yeah, never mind. Those guys get it way worse." So the bigger you get, I think just be prepared. The more hate you get, which is like, it's an unfortunate side effect to success on
Yeah.
YouTube.
But I think there is also for us creators, there's this conscious selection or like subconscious selection. For example, I get, let's say, 100 positive comments or 50 positive comments and then one negative comment. So yeah, you say, okay, those 50 might be, we love you, you know, you're creating amazing content, you're changing people's lives and whatever. You like, yeah, it puts a smile, you just like. And then there is this one comment that is like negative, and you
Yeah.
think about that a lot more than you would ever think about any of those positive comments. Unfortunately, I think
Yeah.
it's human brain.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say probably the worst thing that's happened, and I don't know if this has happened to you yet, but eventually there's going to be someone, if you get big enough, some other up and coming YouTuber will
Hmm.
come after you.
Hmm.
Essentially, I've had people take my clips from my videos and
Hmm.
then take them out of context and then
Yeah,
paint me
yeah,
in a
yeah.
negative light.
Yeah.
And that feels bad when someone does a targeted attack. So these days, it's not so much commenters because honestly, I don't, it doesn't, I don't read them very much, but also it's very much a, hey, in one ear, out the other. I'm so used to it. But yeah, still very occasionally I'll get something, but I have a really strong community too. So I did have a short pop up the other day and I was laughing because it was like Chris Titus Tech's win you till the dark side, and then they pointed at like this almost like a parody video, and I was laughing. And then I was like, what are the comments saying? And then I pulled up the comments, and all the comments are like, dude, it's open source, you tool. You like
Yeah.
they're basically just ripping this guy down because he didn't prove anything. He's like, just look at the code, it's all right there. He's
Mm.
not hiding anything. And it was pretty funny, and I was like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. So I didn't even have to say anything. The
Mhm.
community kind of just took care of it for
Yeah,
me, and I was
that's
like,
great.
that's neat.
I
Yeah,
mean, Util is a very great. It's a great project. It's a 45,000, and many people in Turkey uses it as well. A lot of them. Many
yeah.
of them. I also have some of the viewer questions for later on, and they ask some of the questions for that too. But okay, so I want to ask: you've been live streaming more than ever, and creating less long form content more than ever. Why is that? What changed?
I guess for me, it was less rewarding. I would say, like both physically, like I was just less inclined to make more content
Hmm.
videos because I've made a video about pretty much everything at this point.
Yeah.
I've had multiple channels where I've produced somewhere upwards of 1,000 something videos across multiple channels. I gotta say, I kind of burnt out a little bit, and I was like, okay, well, I'll just scale back a bit. And then YouTube started paying quite a bit less, to where I wasn't necessarily. I mean, I still do really well on my view counts and stuff, so I'm not complaining at all here. Like I've seen many people that have been on YouTube for 8 years, and they start to fall off.
Hmm.
But for me, I mean, my view counts are higher than ever, and I'm
Hmm.
still very happy with the view counts I get. So it's not necessarily I'm getting less views. It's just there's less incentive to do those because I think the YouTube AdSense is paid probably 50% less or something of that over time, and compared to like 5 years ago, like 2020 was like probably the peak for what you got paid. And then 2021 was also a pretty good year for me. And then every year past that, it's YouTube's paid less and less per video. So they're really wanting you to leverage sponsorships to really make a full time living, to where once you add sponsors to the video, that's where most mid-sized to smaller creators are able to make a full time revenue stream. Where the YouTube AdSense, it's harder to kind of just use that as your sole
Yeah.
source of revenue. Where that's how it used to be for me. I never liked sponsors, and
You
I
don't?
didn't like the back and forth. It's
Yeah.
it's a hard process. A lot of
Yeah.
people, it's not less necessary. I'm not tearing down creators that do take sponsorships because you have to as a smaller creator if this is your full time gig. But it's not a process that I enjoy. So I've always just been like, I'd rather work a regular job than have to do the sponsorships.
Okay.
That's how much I don't like it. If it was just like, hey, Titus, shill this project, here's a couple thousand
Yeah.
dollars, I'd be like, cool, I'll make the video. But people think that's how it goes. But in reality, it's like, here you go. Here's a contract. We sign the contract. I send it back. I'm like, okay, here's the insertion order. Then we go, okay, here's a sponsorship spot. I make the sponsorship spot. I send it back. And they're like, oh, well, that's good. But we'd like if you tweak these things. And then I'm like, oh my God. All right. Yeah. Okay. Let me go tweak those things. And I send it back. They're like, that's also good. But it just could just do this little part. And I'm like, fine, all right. And then I'll go back and change it again and then send it back in and then submit that. And then it'll go, there's this back and forth process. And I just hate that. And it's not a process I've ever enjoyed. And I know other creators have gotten a really good way of doing it. I think I've talked to many other creators, and what they do is instead of just doing a one off or two off thing, they say, hey, I'll do this, but I'll sell it to you in the form of 5 or 10
Yeah.
videos
Packaged.
and a package. And I think
Hmm.
that's what you have to do with the sponsors.
Yeah.
And I just never really did that. And I was just like,
Hmm.
forget it. That's fine. So that's why I stopped really doing a lot of videos, because honestly, I just didn't want to monetize them. YouTube stopped paying as much,
Mhm.
and if I had a bunch of sponsors lined up, I probably would still be jamming out videos, but I
Mhm.
just don't sponsor my content. So if I don't get there's almost no incentive there.
Mhm.
So at the end of the day, I do a video mainly just to say, "Hey, I'm not dead." And
Mhm.
here's something new. Like, honestly, these days I just wait for the news articles. I'm like,
Ah,
all right,
yeah.
Microsoft, come on, Microsoft. What kind of spyware are you gonna put on us this month?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, yes, there we go. Look at that, they're spying on us. They're
Yeah.
going after it. So,
Yeah.
so that's how my video production process works. Most creators are like, I'm gonna do one video a week. Me, I'm just like waiting there, waiting for the news and what kind of stupid thing Microsoft's gonna do next. And I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, it's time to make a video.
Yeah. Great, great. Well, I mean, if I may, for the future, I can maybe point out for you or maybe some other people for the sponsorship process. How can you more streamline it? Maybe. But by the way, our content is most of our videos, 90% is sponsored, and that's how 80% of money I make is from sponsorships. And it has been like this for the last 6 7 months. And
It's the only way to succeed. Like,
yeah,
real facts. Like, if you are a small or mid-sized creator,
yeah,
like less than 1 million subs, you have to do sponsors. Otherwise, you cannot make a living doing
yeah,
YouTube.
true.
And that is just the truth of the matter. So,
Yeah.
and I totally get it. But yeah, no, I think I'd love to see it. I also pick Jeff Geerling. I talk to him
Mhm.
often, and he has a really good structure, and he actually open sourced his sponsorship
Really?
rules.
Oh, that's nice.
So I'll send you those. Jeff Geerling does a
Yeah, I know
fantastic
him.
job.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he
Hmm.
does a whole bunch of different rules. Like, he won't take VPN sponsors, and there's certain people he
Mm.
just refuses to work with because of
Mm.
past dealings or just moral or
But
ethics.
I'm not sure it's
And
YouTube is his full job or not too, right? Because he also works with companies or do some other stuff. I think I'm not
uh,
sure, but
I think Gearlings is full time. I think
really,
he does
that's nice.
YouTube, and he supports a. I think his family is rather large too, so
Yeah.
he's traditional, uh, and I believe he does this full time. He does work with his father at a radio station too, but I think that's
Mm.
more of like on the side. But his main
Okay.
gig is YouTube.
What I would tell, for example, you, if you were to ever take sponsor again, you say the back and forth process. What I do to minimize that is two things. First, on the sponsorship contract, I explicitly tell I will do maximum 2 times, not revising, re-edit. I say re-edit because I don't want to especially if they've confirmed everything, I'm not gonna go do another revise, right? So I say that in the contract. And the second thing I do is I before I do anything to video, anything ad read, if concept needs to be confirmed, I also do that. But then secondly, even if I'm gonna improvise, I still write some sort of ad read for them to, or like key points for them to approve. And I
Hmm.
want them to explicitly approve that, because after they approve, they can't tell me like, okay, we don't want you to tell this anymore. But that, that's not gonna happen. So because as I told you, I'm sponsoring every one of my content. So I
Yep.
need to make this quick. I can't just
Yep.
again and again, back and forth, back and forth. It's gonna kill my time, my editor's time, everybody's time. So you can streamline it like that. Put it in the contract, and also give them some sort of ad read, and then
Hmm.
it's gonna be better. That's gonna minimize most of the stuff.
Yeah,
I,
that's smart. That's really smart. And
I
I
would
just
recommend
did
that.
not do that. I was too open with my stuff, and I was back and forth, and I was like, ah.
Yeah,
But yeah, well,
yeah,
at this point, I'm just like, yeah, I don't care.
yeah.
I'm kind of over it. At
But it might
these
change in the
days, I'm
future.
just like, eh. You never know, though. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, you never know what the future holds. If I were to ever go back through,
mark my
one,
words.
yeah, I would. I probably would take what you're talking there, put it in a structured format, and one of the big things. This is a whole side tangent, but here in America, it's hard to get good health insurance. But
Yeah.
if you tie the sponsors to a company, I think it's like a Screen Actors Guild has like a YouTube section carve out, and if they approve the sponsor and you filter everything through them, they take a 1% fee on the contract. but they also revise the contract and protect you. And then also you get health insurance through them. So you can
Hmm.
actually do, I think it's SAG-AFTRA. It's for like, is what it's called here in the States. So if any other creators watch this, you can actually use them to get health insurance and also revise some of those contracts.
Hmm. Yeah.
So it's a something in the future. If I didn't have my normal day job, as much as I want to write off sponsorships altogether, I could see a future there where if I didn't have a day job and I needed to get health insurance and stuff,
Extra
that's
money
probably
never
how I'd do
hurts.
it. Yeah, streamlining is amazing. You should always, I always say, hey,
Yeah.
if you can, do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Well, so my last question on this creator journey stuff is that we see the success of Chris Titus Tech and Minutel, but what is a failure or a project you spent months on that completely flopped? What did you learn from it?
That's a long list, man. That's a long list.
Really?
Well,
You know
I mean,
what
I
they
got it
say?
here.
Most
Yeah.
successful people are the ones who fail the most.
Yes, yes. I always tell my kids to succeed, you have to fail. So I spent thousands of dollars and I bought a whole bunch of these guys. And so I have these little mini PCs, and my idea was to write my own Linux distribution and then sell it as its own computer, like Titus Computing, right? So I'd make a whole bunch of these, and I have a whole box full over there. And maybe with the memory crisis, it might actually be viable now. But
Yeah.
I was never able to complete it and make it polished enough to actually sell it. So I spent all this money getting these, and then I could never refine it enough, and then make like a good documentation to go with it, and then sell it through the channel to make it. So that was a failure of mine. I think I called it like Titus OS or something,
You
or
wrote the
Titus
OS as
5.
well? Is like open source or on the internet or is like
Yeah, yeah,
private?
yeah.
Yeah, on the
No, no,
internet?
no. It was a GitHub link, and I think let's see, I can look up real fast. I think it was
Maybe you can do it better with
Titus.
AI now.
Yeah,
Put
yeah,
it
that's
in-
true.
Yeah,
I might pull it back up because this was like 4 or 5 years ago now. So
yeah.
I had that. I wouldn't call this necessarily a failure. It just never made any money. So from that respect, I guess it's kind of a failure. But I've been writing a Linux book for years, and it's actually thelinuxbook.com, and it shows like all the different iterations of Linux and how to do networking, audio, Bluetooth, and set up different distributions, and kind of what Linux is made of. And I even put video links to explainers I've done on YouTube to really tie into the book. And I was originally envisioning like putting that in actually paper format and then selling it through a bookstore. I never got to that point though. Instead, I just was like, here's it all free online. So I just kind of gave
Yeah.
it away. So I don't know if it's a failure. I would just say it just never
It
really
could
made
still
any
sell.
money.
I think it
I
could still
could.
sell, no? Right? I mean, even if it's
Yeah.
free, people still pay for it, like, I mean, to support
Yeah.
and, or, you want a physical copy. Some people value physical copy a lot more, so it could happen. But I don't
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
the
So
process, though. Like, it
yeah,
could
I
be
should.
hard.
I do. And I was like, I need to buckle down and get it to the point where it's pretty much ready. I just never
It's
did it.
I just
Yeah.
remembered
Yeah.
this. There is, I think, also in US too. Like there is this on-print demand stuff that you
Oh
could
yeah,
also hook up with
KDP.
that. I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know the process very well. And what did you thought of that?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I've already signed up and everything. I all I got to do is submit it. And I just kept going.
Ah,
Well, I could use a little bit more refining here.
okay.
I could refine
Perfectionism.
this chapter. So I always feel like it's not complete, and I'm like, I just want to do a little bit more and
Are
get it
you
a
a
little bit better.
perfectionistic person in general, or is
Yeah,
it just for this
yeah,
one? Ah,
yeah.
in general,
Perfection is the enemy of progress.
for sure.
That's the thing, and I just keep revising. So I don't know. Maybe eventually it'll get there, but I guess we could chalk it up in the failure column. Other things I've done, other YouTube channels which have failed in the past. I did like a gaming channel for a little bit. I did a fitness channel for a
Yeah, what
little
happened to
bit.
the fitness channel? I searched for it. I
Uh,
couldn't find it
yeah, I
because I
deleted it.
remember
I was
you
just like,
deleted
I'm
it.
done. I'm done. Fitness, YouTube, and social media in general is just an absolute
But why did you
train
delete
wreck.
it? It could stay there for an archival purposes, no?
Ah, no, no, ain't nobody want to see an old man working out. So I was just like, no, I'm removing that. And I was just like, all right. moving on. And I
Yeah.
was just like, people follow me for tech. I'm just gonna make content for tech. And um, God, I'm trying to think of other failures I've had over the past. I've moved on usually. The good thing is when I have a failure and I know it's not hitting, I have a capability of just cutting the cord and just going, okay, that didn't work. I had a 3D printing whole setup, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna make entire like models and stuff. It's gonna be great. That fell through. Oh, at one time, I was really big into cryptocurrency. So
Hmm.
actually, before YouTube, back in 2017, I had like a whole mining setup in my garage, and I had
Hmm.
like 12 different graphics cards, and I was like, "This is the future. I'm
Hmm.
going in big on this." And then, of course, the crash of like 2018 happened, and I was like, "I'm gonna try this YouTube thing instead."
Yeah. Well, that
That was
was
a good
fine at least.
decision. Yeah, that
Yeah.
worked out pretty well. I'm glad
Yeah.
I didn't hang on to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
So
no, I
yeah,
mean,
man.
but if you were to hold on, I think crypto is bigger than ever now, no? Like, I mean, it just,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I always tell people because people are like, "Weren't you big into like Bitcoin in like 2012?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah. I even had like the little USB miners back then, and I've had multiple Bitcoins." Like they're like, "Oh my God, so you're like a millionaire?" And I'm like, "No, that's not quite what happened." And
You
what ends up
sold
going on,
early on?
you sell like
Yeah.
when I had Bitcoin, Bitcoin was $300 a Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
One Bitcoin was $300, and then when
Mm-hmm.
it goes up to $600, well,
Yeah,
you've doubled
doubled
your
it.
money.
Yeah, exactly.
Bye. I'm out. I'm
Yeah.
taking the family. We're going on vacation. We just thanks Bitcoin,
Yeah.
thanks Magic Internet money,
Yeah.
and that's what I did. So, and I don't regret it. It's just human nature, and a lot of people don't
Yeah.
realize that.
Yeah.
If I held on to all my crypto, yeah, I'd be a millionaire many times over. But
Yeah.
human nature, you sell when you make some money like that, some
Yeah.
real money,
In the end,
especially
you
on
made
something that,
money.
yeah,
Yeah, in the end, you made money from it, so that's good. But I mean, it might be obvious to everyone now, oh, how would you sell Bitcoin? But then it's not like that, Back
yeah.
in the,
At the
you don't think
time,
like that, yeah.
yeah, at the time, people were saying, there's always going to be that ra- radical section. It's like hodl and all this other stuff. But
It's
when
gonna
it came
crash.
to actually
You mean those?
the crash, and at the end of the there's no physical or tangible product here at the end of the
Mm.
day. There was no mass adoption either. So it was very, very fringe back in those days. So just being able to spend Bitcoin on anything other than just buying more Bitcoin was kind of rare. It's not nearly as mainstream as it is today.
Yeah.
And that's why Bitcoin doesn't have nearly as much volatility as it did back then. And people are like,
Mhm.
wait, Titus, it goes down 20 or 30% here and there. And I'm like, rookie numbers. Back 10 years ago,
Yeah.
we're talking 90% swings. It could be,
Mm.
$300 and it could crash
At
to
any day.
$30. Yeah. And it was
Yeah.
everywhere. It
Yeah.
went all over the place. So,
So I mean,
and
it's more about, I think, the mindset. So back in the days, you were like, you made double the money, and you're like, great. But so
yeah,
maybe somebody actually believed the idea. So I'm gonna hold it for 10 years, 20 years. I
right.
mean, yeah, it's more about the mindset of the holder, I would say.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And I never treated it as an investment. I always
Yeah.
thought of it as, well, this is a fun technology. Let's mess around with some blockchain and see what the back end looks like. And then they all have their limitations. They all have certain things that should be fixed where I'm kind of like, that could be done better. And maybe the next one will do it right. But typically a lot of the newer projects, I'm kind of like, when I look at like tokenomics and other stuff, I'm like, this is all just a scam. So
Yeah, there's a lot of scam.
I'm very much an OG kind of guy. If it hadn't been around for 10 plus years at this point, I'm just like, it's not worth it.
Okay, okay. But do you hold any stuff for investment purposes these days? Bitcoin, or what do you invest in general?
Yeah. So these days I'm more precious metals, so gold,
Hmm.
silver, the boomer investing strategy.
Okay, you're getting old. Okay.
Yeah. But I still had I actually this year had some Cardano, and
Hmm.
we had our government's a little crazy here in the States. And they said they were going to take Cardano and put it in like a reserve. And then it like tripled overnight. And I was like, bye.
Great, great.
I was like, I don't know if that's ever going to happen. And I just know everything tripled in price. I'm out. I'm safe taking a little bit of profit off of something I didn't have to lift a finger for.
Yeah, that's great.
Good.
Yeah.
So I'm very risk adverse. And well, I mean, I say that, but I like taking, some of these more ones. But yeah, no.
But 3x is good. And it's not like, like Cardano is not maybe something it's 100% sure of, right? So I would say 3x is great.
Yeah. And I'm like, hey, I'm happy with that. And I know some people are like, oh, that was a mistake. It's going to be worth $1 million here in 5-10 years. We're going to be all working and using it. I'm like, yeah, maybe. But today, me and the family, we're going on a mountain retreat. Thanks, Magic Internet Money.
Yeah. And did you go to the mountain retreat actually?
Yeah. Actually, we go to Colorado and just sit by a river in a cabin. And I'm like, this is great. Thanks, Magic Internet Money.
Have you ever been to Turkey?
No, I have not.
Do you want to? Maybe one day? Or like, did you hear any good stories, good stuff online or whatever, maybe? Or maybe videos?
So you're going to laugh at this. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe Turkey is the best in the world at hair transplants. And a lot of people fly to Turkey and then get the hair transplants and then fly back to the States because everyone sucks at doing hair transplants here in the States. And
it's pretty cheap compared to probably what you could do in United States.
Yeah, it's like half the cost of what's in the States. And then apparently they do like 3 times the follicles. So not only is it less money, but it's a considerably better operation. So I think that's I only know it because I was following this guy online, Harris Heller. Is Senpai Gaming, I think is what his channel's name was, and he went to Turkey and got a hair transplant.
Yeah,
and I was like, that's awesome, brother. I mean, I probably wouldn't tell anybody about it, but it's cool that you did a video on it.
That's great. Yeah, no, many
but
trips,
come
for that.
I've seen pictures. Buddy of mine from back in the day. I think he lives in Croatia, and it's beautiful out there. That whole region, Serbia as well, and there's some really cool spots there, and it looks beautiful. So yeah, no, I wouldn't mind visiting one day.
Let me know if you ever come. Maybe I'll tour you around.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, great. So let's continue on to tech then.
Okay,
yeah. So YubiTool tool has become a standard first step for millions of Windows users. Did you ever anticipate it becoming this massive open source project? And what is the biggest challenge? You told me just before you're having a lot of code reviews. So what is the biggest challenge in maintaining a tool that fights against Microsoft's own updates? That's also another thing.
Wow. There's a lot of questions there on that tool. But I would say the origins of the tool was I've been in IT setting up Windows systems for probably 20 plus years at this point. And I had a script, a PowerShell script already written. And what happened was during 2020, I was doing a bunch of videos and I needed to get a video out and I didn't have anything for the day. So I was just like, I'm going to grab this script. And at the time, it wasn't even called WinUtil. It was called Win10 script. And I just wrote it that and I just tossed it on GitHub, not even knowing how to use GitHub. And that's the origin of WinUtil. Was I just needed a video for that day, and I just already had this setup script for Windows, and I was like, let me just generic some of this stuff. Okay, everyone could use this now. Tossed it up, took about 10 minutes, and just did a video on it. And then people were like, man, I really like this tool, but it kind of needs a GUI. And I'd be like, oh, okay, well, let me see what I can write there. I mean, it is PowerShell script after all. And then it kind of took a life of its own, and then people started wanting to contribute to it. And then I was like, oh, damn, I've never used Git or GitHub. So let me learn Git. So then I was kind of sitting there learning Git. And then over the first couple of years, I had a lot of contributions, but a lot of them I just screwed up because I didn't understand Git and, push polls and reviewing pull requests, accepting and denying, and learning that whole process. And then in 2022, I took Win10 script, revamped it completely, and then pushed it out to its own project, and then it kind of turned into the behemoth that it is today, where we have somewhere upwards of 20 to 30,000 people running it every single day. And I think right now it's close to, yeah, all around the world. So it's about 20 million runs as I started tracking from the past 2 years. So it's been run a lot. And probably the biggest thing is I don't code a whole bunch on it anymore because there's just so much to review. Like the contributions that I get from the open source realm, people are constantly trying to contribute to clean things
Mm-hmm.
up and review it. So it's really nice in that regard, and talking with the community. I think that's why I also do so many live streams, is because I get a lot of live feedback. So people that aren't necessarily good with GitHub can tell me, hey, this is kind of a problem with the tool, or I'm having this issue with Windows. Can you fix it? I really wanted to remove Edge, or I wanted to
Mm.
do this. And I'm like, oh yeah, yeah. Let's go ahead and work on that. And then I'll just kind of work on it on the stream, or look at a pull request that already had that code in it.
I see. I see. I mean, it's a great tool. I'm glad that you had to shoot a video that day, push a video that day, and it started that. I mean, I don't use Windows myself. I just use Linux for all purposes. But I also made a video about it, and people loved it. Like I
Yeah,
introduced for people who wasn't aware, and many people were already aware, by the way,
yeah.
on the community at the very least. But I think my video on Vinutil got around 100,000 views or something for the Turkish. It's Turkey,
Yeah,
obviously.
that's amazing. Well,
But
thank
yeah,
you for doing a video on it, man. I really
man.
appreciate the
I mean,
exposure. I mean, I had Jay's 2 cents cover it this past year. I think Linus
mhm,
Tech Tips even talked about
yeah,
it. There's been a lot of people all around,
it's a great
and
tool. That's why.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
love
why.
it. Funny thing was, I think it was when Jay covered it, and he even said, "Oh, just spend the $10 and do the
Yeah.
offline tool, and then you can get it offline and other things." And I was like, technically, when he made that video, he was wrong.
Mm.
Just he misspoke, because that's not what the executable was. It was just kind of a way to donate. And then I was like,
Mm.
I probably should do that. So instead of actually making a
Ah.
correction video, I was like, damn, okay, I'm getting all this traffic from Jay's video, and some people are saying it doesn't work offline. And I just worked overnight coding that in, and then I updated it, and I was like, okay, guys, if you paid for it, yeah, it works
Yeah.
offline now.
Great. Great. So
So it was a
normally it's
fun
initially the
tidbit.
same tool that didn't have any features, extra features. It's just for donating.
Back in the original
Yeah.
days, it was just mainly just to have an executable that people could click on instead of open up PowerShell.
And these
That's how it
days,
originally started. These days, it's actually offline, so you can run it offline. It'll
mm,
run without an internet connection. And then I'm about to do a massive update and a rewrite.
you just mentioned it,
And
I think, like
yeah,
making
yeah,
faster, right? Yeah.
yeah, and redoing the UI, doing it all in .NET. And right now, like if you were to do a full tweaks on a fresh system, it'd take like a minute. And the rewrite, it should take about 4 to 5 seconds.
I see.
So for the offline executable, because I'm able to do it without PowerShell, so
Hmm.
it's that much more powerful compared to a run through just the PowerShell. It'll still accomplish the same thing, but it'll give more benefit for those that do pay, because of the .NET framework and how I'm able to essentially do all that, and I can use all the tweaks from the open source tool for the executable. But in the end, I want a complete feature parity. So if you don't want to spend any money, you could still just run the command, and it would still work perfect. And if you don't, and you want to pay money or contribute to the project, you'll still get a good benefit too. So it's a best of both worlds type situation for people. And yeah, once I release that, I'll probably increase the price because it's taken me like 2 years to write this entire thing, and I've been working on it on the back end for a long time.
When I shoot the video, I didn't know the paid version or like donated version existed, so I didn't mention
Uh-huh.
it. Sorry about
Yeah.
that. But
Oh
yeah,
no, 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 it's
for
okay. Like,
people who don't know, it's christitus.com. I couldn't I knew like there was a section that you could get downloads, right?
yeah, yeah,
So
downloads.
downloads.
Or you can go cttstore.com too.
cttstore.com. Okay, for those who don't
it's
know.
more-
And it's a great project. I donate to many open source projects that I use myself. And yeah, it's $10. If you're using it and benefiting from it, I highly recommend. Yeah. And there's gonna be an update. It's gonna be even faster, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And
If you buy
hey, there we
today.
go. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
no-
if you don't want to and you want to just use the PowerShell command, it's not going away. That's still all open source, and I'll keep that around. And
There's no dark side to WinUtil.
there's no downside anywhere. So I was
No,
just like,
no.
hey, let's just
I
keep
mentioned-
working on it.
You said there was a video, Dark Side of WinUtil.
Oh yeah. What's he doing behind the scenes? I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't seen that video, but I'm curious. I'm gonna watch it.
I think it was
after
a
our
short. It
conversation.
was pretty funny.
Okay.
It wasn't a full video because there was like nothing to it because everything is open source and nothing's obfuscated. So
Yeah.
if you look into it, it's been. I think we even had some security researchers look at it.
Yeah, I mean, since it's open source, everyone's eyes on it. Like, especially when it becomes popular enough, obviously there's gonna be some people who already works in security are gonna check out the code, advise. I'm sure there would be a lot of. I mean, I'm not into development of the code, but of WinUtil, but I'm sure there would be a lot of pull requests on security side of the things too. No?
Yeah.
Back in the
So,
day, at the very least. Yeah.
We run into that where people review it. We haven't really run into any major security type
it's a
issue
local
with
tool.
it because it's a local tool. It all uses. There's no third party downloads or anything that gets injected. Everything that the tool uses, I make sure it uses official Microsoft tooling. So there's no extra download that ever happens. It was David Bombal is who I was thinking of. He specializes in learning practical hacking techniques and other things. So he actually talked about it as well. And it was kind of good to see some security researchers go through it and go, oh, okay, yep, nope, this is a really good tool, especially for Windows. And I think I'm going to expand some of the security side of things because as Windows kind of opens up into the AI realm, one, removing a lot of those AI features, but also hardening Windows to where it's not as vulnerable. Like there's so many default settings Microsoft leaves on that kind of exposes a lot of Windows users. So that's also going to be coming for every WinUtil user, where it'll just make it easier to harden the Windows and make it a bit more secure. I'm never going to call Windows secure. I always say, hey, learn Linux if you're really into security.
Yeah.
But we can do some more common sense things to help
a lot
Windows
better.
users.
Actually, my next question was related to that. So you fight against Microsoft's bloatware with WinUtil, but at the end of the day, Windows is their closed garden. Is striving for privacy on Windows a losing battle? Is it essentially like trying to patch a sinking ship, or can we actually achieve real privacy on Windows?
It's patching a sinking ship. There's no way to be completely private on Windows. Let's not sugarcoat it. There's a reason why Edward Snowden, if you're familiar, he literally will not use Windows at all, and he was an NSA leaker that it's one of the
of course,
best
I know
secure
it.
Surveillance. And
I have a video
he will never use Windows.
on Edward Snowden. I think around 600,000 views. I'm familiar.
And Edward Snowden was like, learn cubes, learn about compartmentalization. If you're really focused on security and privacy, learn that. Separating out the networks, when you use social networks and how they spy on you. There's a lot of tools that government agencies follow to track users online, and Windows is one of them and will always be. Now, having said that, there's ways to minimize that sharing, but never eliminate when it comes to Windows. I think at the end of the day, if you're really focused on privacy and security, Windows is really not in that conversation.
But I mean, I guess for a normal regular user, you could use tools to minimize that stuff, and you would be okay probably.
Yeah, and that's what people use. Like most people using Windows do it for work, or it's what they know, it's what their productivity or their workflow has. I get it. I have certain things I might use Windows for, but it's not my main daily driver.
I actually have a question about that later on. If Microsoft called you tomorrow after watching this video, obviously, and offered you the role of Chief of User Experience with absolute power to fix Windows, what is the first feature you would delete permanently?
All the AI crap.
All
Like
the AI
it is
crap.
just it's terrible. So I'd
Yeah.
first start with like Copilot, Recall. Those have to get out of Windows. So strip those out. Absolutely. They've integrated those into the systems, even into the Explorer side of things, and that's pretty bad. The
And by
second
the way,
thing,
you're saying this as a pro AI guy in a sense. I mean, you like AI, you
oh
like
yeah,
using AI,
yeah,
right?
but
Yeah.
that's not AI. It's just awful. Like it doesn't even use LLMs properly. It's like a really bad implementation of Copilot. It's just like you ask it to do something and it's just not a consistent experience. Be like, hey, change me to dark mode, Copilot, and then it's like, oh, you want to change to dark mode. Okay, well, you're going to want to open up the settings app, and then you're going to want to go to appearance. And then from appearance, go down to here and make sure you click dark mode. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's not helpful. You should just do it if
Yeah.
you were actually good. And I think some of that stems from fundamentally after that, Windows search has always been just terrible. Like it's never had a good iteration of Windows search, and
Mm.
I would
Yeah.
revamp that to be something like everything search, or
Mm.
something that is very fast, succinct. It doesn't need to browse the web, and they have a lot of
Mm.
integration with Edge. I would obviously remove that. I would probably work with the binary team. I actually had a buddy of mine that worked for Microsoft. He was laid off this past year, but he worked on the binary team for 20 plus years. That actually wrapped up and worked on the back end of Windows. And I would probably employ people like him to take and fix some of these current issues. The problem with Microsoft right now is they're vibe coding a little too much and they don't have traditional knowledge. One good example of this is Windows Explorer recently was having like 3-4 seconds to launch. And then that 3 or 4 seconds to launch, they couldn't fix it by fixing the binary. So what they ended up doing was they just launch it automatically on startup. So if you're on 25H2 and beyond, Windows Explorer is so inept and so bad and not properly programmed anymore. They literally just launch it automatically and it runs
Really? They can't
outside
make it
of
better. Like they
they
can't fix
they
that.
they just gave up and were like, well, I know there's a lot of third party tools that do this, but whatever. We'll just launch it on startup like we do all the Edge services. So what happens on Windows, the startup is now up to like 150, 160 processes out of the gate. And a lot of that is to help their other existing suite not look slow. So Explorer looks like it's fast, but that's because it's already running on startup. Edge looks like it's faster than Chrome, but it's just a fork of Chromium, and a lot of the other pieces of Edge are running in the background. So it makes other browsers look a little slower than Edge, when in reality Edge is always running on your system. There's so many little things like that that happens to Windows, and it's just been like this very slow enshittification of Windows that has happened over just the past couple years, and I work my best to remove as much of that as possible. But getting back to your original question, what would I do? That's where I'd start, and really decoupling some of this stuff where it feels like Microsoft's just run by a bunch of marketers, and they're losing a lot of their legacy engineers that know what's going on, and the people that really are good, where I don't know if they have the capabilities or competent enough in them to make a good product. I think all they can do is destroy what they have left of Windows, given their current state of thing. And I'm here for it. I mean, it's great content. Don't get me wrong. It sure would be nice if they didn't screw up quite as much as they are.
Yeah. Since this is getting too long, you should check your RSS feed after leaving.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
there's one more thing, popping up. Yeah.
It's
Uh,
true.
it always baffled me. I mean, I haven't been using Windows for 2-3 years now, but when I first switched to Linux, there was this whole dark theme you could switch, and everything in the system would switch to dark theme, and I was like, what the hell? Like you can, and at the time I think Windows didn't even have a proper dark theme switching mechanism, and it also like this like little things very very much baffling when I think about it. Like for example, the Explorer didn't have tabs stuff, like, and I didn't know like it, how useful could it be before I switched to Linux, because on Linux I could just like man, on a single screen, I can do so much. Like it is amazing, and
Yeah.
it baffles me. Like they don't really prioritize making user experience better. And I think still to this day, it's the same mantra. I feel like Microsoft doesn't really prioritize the Windows that much anymore because they don't gain much from Windows, from what I know. They just gain from Azure and other stuff. So I'm not sure how much do Microsoft care at this
Yeah,
point.
I think 20% of the revenues come from it's 10 to 20% come from Windows, and that's
Yeah.
pretty good. As far as
But it's not your regular personal users, by the way, right? That's just
no,
businesses buying
just
licenses.
businesses.
Yeah.
hmm People that are stuck on
So
Windows,
no need to
essentially.
care for user experience.
No, no,
I
not at
mean,
all.
monetarily at the very least.
I mean, I think you can see that in the last couple of years. Some of these things, nobody likes these tools. Any kind of feedback they've gotten has been negative, and it's very apparent. They don't have to search far on the internet. I mean, their CEO constantly gets made fun of on every form of social media out there anytime he makes a tweet. So or posts something, people are like, nobody wants this crap. So I know he sees it. You'd have
They
to
don't
be
care.
blind not to. He
I
just
guess.
doesn't care.
No. No, I mean, like I said, I think monetarily they don't have any reason to.
No.
But maybe with this, I don't know. Like, I mean, it's hard to really say these things, but maybe with this gaming side, Valve makes good moves. Maybe in the 10, 20 years next future, maybe they could bleed a little bit. Then they might start to care. But that's the year of the Linux desktop meme. We go there.
Yeah,
Then,
yeah, yeah. I think we will see Xbox. I know they said the next Xbox will essentially be Windows. So they're basically merging their Xbox realm into Windows, and
yeah.
I've even tested their new Xbox interface
Hmm.
on Windows, and it's not bad. Uh, I actually kind of look forward to that. It's something new to look at, and we'll see what it ends up being. But from a home theater perspective and a gaming perspective, I'm kind of here for it because consoles is such a lockdown experience, and putting Xbox into the PC realm is kind of neat because you now have this locked ecosystem that nobody really touched that much into a Windows interface. I mean, now you're kind of talking my game here, and I'm just like, oh, that's neat. I might do something with that and see. And the new interface I've already tinkered with quite a bit, and I like it. I was like, this is actually pretty good for some Windows users because it doesn't launch Explorer by default. It actually has a optimized Xbox run space essentially, where it doesn't have anything running. So then the game will take priority and be able to run with all that extra crap running in the background. And I was like, I might be able to repurpose that uh, run space for other things too. So I kind of see some stuff Microsoft's doing. It's not all necessarily bad. It's just we'll see where it goes, and I'm sure they have to do something. They can't just keep bleeding millions of users every year. Well, or I guess they could, but I would imagine they wouldn't want to.
Yeah, I mean, monetarily, like I said, just normal user.
Mhm.
How much would they care? I don't know, but we'll see. And hopefully, I think, I mean, some people, back in the days when I was doing just purely Linux content. These days, it's more general. But people perceive me sometimes as Windows hater, Mac OS hater. I don't hate
Mhm.
anything. I mean, I would want these platforms to get better too. Like, I mean, why would I hate it? Uh, Hopefully they get better. Hopefully maybe they'll make user experience more of a priority.
I doubt it, but you never
Yeah.
know. You never know.
Yeah.
I think there'll be some bright spots though, and I'll always be here to kind of monitor their movements and do it because that's just my skill set. It's what I've done
No.
for the past 20 years. Has always been, hey, let's make Windows a little bit better than what
Yeah.
Microsoft gives you, and then cleaning it up. And, it's what I know. It's just in my blood, and
Yeah.
I don't see
Great.
that changing anytime soon. So we'll see what
Yeah.
happens. I have there are some bright spots, but yeah, I
Yeah.
got my work cut out for me in the next couple years, just removing all the AI bloat and all that other nastiness that
You're
comes with
already
it.
ready for it for the next
Oh yeah,
things that are coming.
yeah. I always
Okay,
install
good.
the preview build and going, all right, what do we got
Uh,
now?
yeah,
Ugh.
great. So then my next question is, you've shifted from just making videos to building software. Do you see yourself evolving more into like developer founder role in the future rather than making content, especially with this AI? And you just mentioned, for example, your project with the keyboard, making a video, making a Linux operating system. Like especially with AI now, to create is more than productive and faster than ever. Do you see yourself maybe creating some sort of company selling that kind of stuff?
No, I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Yeah, I really like where I'm at.
Okay.
I can't imagine a better life than the one
Mm,
I'm living right now,
that's
where
great.
I really enjoy having a little bit of taste of the regular 9 to 5 job. I like making occasional YouTube video, and I like developing software. And I don't ever want to run my own company where I have people working under me. I don't want to employ people. I don't want to build up a company and try to sell it to somebody. I just love everything about all those things I already do. And I feel like if I tried to do that, I'm sure I could make a lot more money than I'm making, but I don't think I would be any happier. So it's not something I would actively ever pursue. I know it's kind of a boring answer where it's like,
No, 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 no.
I kind of like my life as it is, and honestly, I just don't want to screw it up. I just want to learn. I want to learn some new skills, enjoy what happens in the world that's positive, and
Yeah,
then make the negative stuff kind of go away. I love helping
no.
people, and I just don't think I would ever change from that and into a more leadership type role. I don't. That's just
Yeah.
not my jam.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, if it works for you, if you feel happy, then that's great. But there's this I sense from your tone or like the way that you express yourself, it sounds peaceful. It sounds very good. Like it, and many people when they see me on live stream too, they're like, man, like I mean, you see all these positive stuff. I'm more of a guy also like looking, on the positive note, dismissing negative stuff in general on my life too. But I mean, as human beings, we all want something in a sense more. It's like you buy a car, then I don't own a car, but just as an example, you buy a car, then you say, you become very happy that day, but next day it doesn't give you as much pleasure, right? For everything. This is, I think, called hedonistic adaptation. I think that's what it's called. So yeah, great. I mean, so you're enjoying all this. You sound peaceful, but are you always this kind of peaceful? Like, do you not want more, or like, do you not feel dissatisfied some time to time? How is that
I
kind of? Yeah.
am a tinker at heart, and
Okay.
to use your analogy with the car, my car is 12 years old right now. It
Hmm.
has like 160,000 miles. I don't know how much in kilometers that might be,
Yeah.
but it's a lot.
Yeah.
And I like just tinkering. So, I ripped out all the electrical in it. I pulled out the entire center dashboard, redid it, and rewired it to more modern standards. And I like it better than a lot of the newer cars. I get into a newer car, like my wife got a newer car just this past year, and I get in it and I'm like, mm, I don't like this. It's beeping at me. It's doing too much, and I'm just like, get off my lawn, kind of.
Yeah.
I just wanted to do the one thing, but for me, my happiness resides in things breaking or being able to tinker and optimize. Is really where my happiness is. So honestly, for me to be unhappy, honestly, if Microsoft got their act together and Windows turned into this perfect product, that might make me unhappy. So
Yeah.
that might be a bad thing for me
Yeah.
if Microsoft ever did hire someone that was competent
Yeah.
to
I see.
lead them and go, hey, we need to focus on the user experience. I'd be like, uh-oh, I
Uh,
don't know if I like this guy. so,
yeah.
so no, but I do just enjoy the tinkering aspect. That's why a lot of times I love Linux, because there's always something, there's some new rabbit hole to go down, something new to learn.
Mhm.
And if I'm learning, I'm also very happy. And it's
Mhm.
when you stay stagnant too long in life and you're not learning anymore. I feel like that's when I was the most unhappy with
Hmm.
what was going on. If I look back at the periods when I wasn't happy in life, many of that stemmed from not not being able to learn anything and not really having anything to tinker with. And then
Hmm.
I was deeply unhappy during those periods of
Hmm.
my life.
I think one thing the experience gets you after you live a certain time, maybe it's more like you know what you like and don't like in a sense. I mean, this might sound trivial, but you know, when you're, let's say, 20 years old or like 15, 16, 20, 25 or whatever, you might not exactly know what you actually really, really like and really, really dislike. And I think one of the things that I see on the young people is that they don't try enough. Like you gotta try enough to know actually what you really like and what you really dislike. So then you might maybe enjoy your life more in a sense. Yeah, so that's what I saw from you. Like you know what you really, really like in a sense, and you're going more on to that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that's just I think everybody throughout life you're going to figure that out, and just as you said,
I
you
mean,
know,
you
when I was
might not.
20, I didn't
Some
know what
people
I
don't.
wanted. For me, I think it was when I was in my 30s and I was trying to get the biggest job I could. I wanted to work for a big company. I wanted to redo their IT. I wanted to be this like high, powerful, important person that was a director and did all these things. And then when I achieved that, it's probably the most unhappy I've ever been in my life. And it taught me, wow, okay, so if this isn't making me happy, okay, well, I need to figure out what I do like. And then for me, that helped me a lot. That helped me a lot to realize, hey, this is not happiness. This is the absolute, this is the worst. I'm working all the time. I'm making a ton of money, but deeply unhappy. And that's when I kind of started my journey down the whole Bitcoin to YouTube to all kinds of other things where I just wanted to go out and do my own thing. And then I did it, and I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. I
I'm gonna
mean,
just keep doing this.
seeing or like listening you happy, like calm, that kind of calmness makes me happy, to be honest.
Yeah,
You're good
yeah,
at radiating that energy too. That's great. That's great. And I hope every viewer watching us will get that kind of thing in their life in the
yeah,
future, right? Or
yeah.
now. And can be now, I guess. Okay, so let's move on to the AI. Again, I had some couple of more AI questions. When it comes to AI, one thing that pops up to everybody's mind, and everyone has different opinion on it. It's like, is it a bubble? Is it? What do you think?
Absolutely. Of course it's a bubble. Like let's look back in time. Yeah. Like in the 2010s it was all about, or actually like late 2000s early 2010s, it was all about virtualize everything. Everything should be virtualized. And then it moved from that to everything should be software as a service or everything should be in the cloud. And then it moved from that to everything should be blockchain or decentralized, serverless, and then it moved from that to AI. And the thing about it is, it doesn't mean that AI is not worthwhile. We've already talked extensively about how beneficial certain things about AI or LLMs are when used as a tool. The problem with most of the AI bubble is it's the marketing behind it. 95% of AI is just straight up lies. They're not they're not telling you the truth. It's just a tag they're slapping on the end of a product that isn't AI, and they're selling it as such. And then there's also circular financing. There's also a ton of other things happening behind the scenes with the wealthy elite that are running those markets. That yeah, it's going to crash. It's going to eventually crash. Uh, so it's a bubble. How big is that bubble? I think is a better question when it comes to seeing. I don't think it's going to be a traditional crash like the dot coms or even the real estate crash of like the 2008s, 2009s. When I look at it, it's going to be an interesting crash because at the same time you have the debasement of the U.S. dollar, so it's going to be hard to gauge when that crash happens and how big of that crash will be. Uh, to be devil's advocate here, yeah, it's still a bubble, but a lot of this money comes from these companies that already have a giant war chest of cash. When
Mm,
you look at Apple, you look at Google, you look at Microsoft, these are multi-trillion dollar companies now.
mm,
Trillion.
yeah.
That is a ton of money they have, and they can absorb a ton of that hurt and pain.
Mm.
And avoid, we'll see where it goes, but I mean Nvidia as well. I don't think OpenAI will be around in 5 to 10 years is probably my prediction.
Wow,
And I
that's
know
a
that's
bold
probably
prediction.
that's a kind of a bold
Uh,
prediction, but I look at it and I'm like, yeah, Sam Altman's kind of a tool. I don't think he has it. And
yeah,
most of the really people that made OpenAI or put GPT on the screen are pretty much gone, or
true,
there's very few of them left. And
true.
now we're left with the Microsoft situation where it's like just marketers. And I don't think the product's that good. Like I look at GPT in comparison to Claude. I think Anthropic does a better job. I look at it in comparison to Gemini. I think Gemini
No,
surpassed GPT now, which is hilarious because Gemini used to suck
model
1 year
wise.
ago,
Yeah,
but Google has done a good job of catching up.
yeah.
Um, Grok,
Has its
Grok,
own
if
problems then.
you need to put somebody in a bikini, you got Grok.
Man, that's
It
yeah,
also will also be the Pentagon's AI as well. So as
yeah.
an American, I'm like, well, this is how we get Skynet. Okay.
I mean, Grok is kind of hilarious. We have a series that is called Technology Report, where I'm telling people that week's news, right? So I've seen a title at first, like, okay, Grok, people are using Grok to create uncensored images, let's just say, and they're undressing people or whatever. I'm like, okay, I mean, I don't think that's a big deal. Now that it made a headline, probably they're going to remove that feature. And then 1 week later, it's still there. And then 1 week later, it's there. And then there's still headlines. And then people now are talking why Apple and Google do not pull out from the. Like, I don't understand how it can literally like it's a legal AI tool where you can do illegal things, but it can still stay and nobody does a thing.
What's the only thing it's good at? So, I mean, that's kind of like its main selling feature. Let's be real here. Anybody that's actually used Grok, I've tried to use it for programming, and I'm like, oh, that's bad. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, well, that was a fun experiment. But I mean, for real, that's what it's. Maybe it has a future as like an AI girlfriend type thing, or they said that the Pentagon was gonna adopt it, which we'll see
Really?
how that
AI
goes.
girlfriend, Pentagon.
Yeah, and maybe all the Pentagon people, need AI girlfriends. I don't know. I mean, it wouldn't be anything out of the realm of possibility in today's
Okay.
environment.
But I must say, by the way, you said like Claude is better than ChatGPT, and Gemini is better. I mean, Gemini models are really great these days. The
Yeah.
Flash model is extremely fast and does good intelligent stuff, and Pro model is great too. But I hate Gemini's UI. It's extremely bad. You don't have projects feature. You don't have, and I don't understand. Like Google, okay, you're creating great models, thank you, but
Hmm.
can you just make it better, the UI? And these days I've been trying Open Web UI. Maybe you've heard of the project. It's an open source that you can self-host, and you can put your Open Router API key or whatever to plug
Yeah,
in
open code.
multiple not open code, no, Open Web UI.
Oh, okay.
It's like ChatGPT or Gemini. Like, you have multiple people. You can sign in with multiple people, and I think some of the companies actually use it for their own infrastructure. It's a very popular project, more than
Oh, yeah.
100,000 stars from what I know. But so I've been
Yeah.
trying to use that. The guys have created a great UI. Actually, I liked it. I like it compared to many cloud, ChatGPT, Gemini. I like the UI better. You can do nested folders. You can give different multiple system prompts. And I'm thinking of making a video about it even. It's a great software. And I think
That's
Gemini
cool.
models are great,
Uh-huh.
but I hate
The
the
web
UI.
UI is awful.
It's
Yeah,
awful.
I don't really use the web UIs very often. The only times I do, usually it's like a app wrapper I have, like as a hotkey in my Linux instance. So I'll pull up either GPT or Claude or whatever it is. I don't even. No, I do have Gemini on a hotkey. I just don't use it very often. Um, And usually it's when I run into like a really complex error in Linux or something. I'll just copy and paste the error and be like, what's this saying? Ah, okay, I got it. And then I might take that and run with it. But typically it's like not something I need to iterate very much. And it's usually just a simple question. I might use a web UI. For the most part, though, almost everything I do where I need to iterate a bunch and really do some heavy lifting with AI, I'm doing it from the IDE or that type of thing.
Terminal
So
interfaces, maybe. I've actually
yeah,
seen one
open
of the
code's a
videos.
good one. Yeah.
I've never thought about it before. So I've seen a video of Network Chuck. He talked about using terminal and like folder based kind of structure. You can the terminal. I mean, even if general stuff, not for coding, you can that AI tool can interact with your files and whatnot. It's a good thing. Like it has a good use case. For example, I go to the gym. I have this tracking app. It uses SQL as a database, and I export it right away. And my in my folder, I open Gemini CLI, and it has its instructions. It pulls out uses like SQLite command line to get every my gym progress and whatever, and then creates another recommendation for the next session. So it has good use cases on the 2UI as well. But so from what I understand, you mainly use vibe coding screen then, like like Windsurf or whatever for
Actually VS Code.
VS
So
Code.
I
Yeah,
don't really use Windsurf.
but
I
I've
use
seen
just mainly.
use Windsurf a lot in the last streams at the very least. It was
No,
open.
that's all.
When,
That's all code. That's all VS Code because Windsurf's a fork of code. It looks like very
ah,
identical. It
I
also looks a
know.
lot like Cursor.
Yeah.
But yeah, VS Code's kind of what I've settled on these days, which is kind of
Ah,
hilarious.
okay.
But the reason why I do it is I'm kind of cheap and I don't want to spend any money on it. So I
Ah,
don't actually subscribe to any AI model. I don't
yeah.
have a monthly fee to anything. Since I have WinUtil, Microsoft actually gives me a free Copilot license.
Really.
And that Copilot license gives me premium requests for free. And those premium requests can be redeemed to use on other models. So it's
Mm.
kind of funny. I essentially use and abuse that system to where I can use all of the models like Claude and
Mm.
those and use some of the premium tier stuff without actually paying for it. So
Yeah.
that's how I kind of get around it. And most of it's done all through the VS Code integration with GitHub and Copilot. And then I use that
Mhm.
subscription that I don't pay for to use Claude.
How did you get that though? That's the question. Maybe people will want to
If you
know.
have an open source project with over several thousand stars
Mm.
and it's public, then you automatically get a Copilot premium license for free. And
Mm.
they just keep renewing it every like month or 2 months. Eventually, they'll probably remove it and then I'll actually have to pay money. But until then, I'm
I
like,
see.
well, I'm going to
Yeah.
use this free stuff and not have to pay anything.
Great. And I can tell you one thing, if you ever like, and people might have wondered, like Open Web UI, you have to bring your own key or host local LLMs, but local LLMs, let's be honest, they're not good at if unless you have a big GPU that can run DeepSeek or whatever. So one thing that I was curious, like, would I pay more than a subscription? But so I'm using my OpenRouter API key, and there's this good thing, like they have a bunch of free models too, and they don't also train your stuff on the models. So yeah, they have a bunch of free models, and it's very good. With one click, you can switch to any model you want, but with paying, obviously, like Opus, Sonnet, Gemini, every model, and there's a bunch of free models. So with general tasks, daily tasks, I'm using free models, and then I can switch to the expensive ones if I want to do more intelligent stuff. And I believe that would yield me a lot less than, for example, paying $20 a month. And yeah, people should try Open Web UI. It's a good tool.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm definitely going to try it after we get off here. But I would say right now, I would just pay for like the API key and then
Yeah.
use that and then wait because it's changing every month. One model that's good today might not be good tomorrow, or there might be something better that comes along. Wait for this to play out. And
Yeah.
then when all these models, like these services, are just burning cash, millions of
Mhm.
dollars every day, just burning cash trying to get users to use their apps. But if you're
Mhm.
using this and you can constantly change models and you just wait to see who the winner is, Once that happens, and then all of a sudden they start jacking up all their rates and the API keys start having really, really nasty charges,
Mm-hmm.
cancel it all, and then switch to the local model, and then you
Mm.
go ahead and invest. And if you want to run it all locally,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
when
yeah.
I think you do it. But for me, I'm just doing, hey, one, I'll use this free workaround I got going on right now. But when that
Mm-hmm.
fails, I'll probably just subscribe and just do a straight API key where I pay per request. And then once those requests start to cost way too much, then I might actually move to a
But
self-hosted solution.
you know what? I think it wouldn't cost that much even because people don't. If you've never used API keys and you used all subscriptions, I think people don't understand this. Like, you need to specify model for different workloads. Like, for example, if it's a light thing, for example, you talked about chaptering, right? You don't need a very huge model to do that kind of work. You can just give it to a smaller model with a lot of cheaper model, and it will do the job as well, as much as good as what an expensive model would do. So when you're using these kind of, OpenRouter is good at this. You get the API key, you can select multiple models, and then you can just offload easier tasks to smaller models with almost like very much free requests. Then you can offload more expensive stuff to bigger models. I'm maybe in the future, as you mentioned, maybe everybody's gonna increase their API prices, but then we have good open source Chinese models too these days, and there people are hosting them too. So there's always gonna be good cheap alternatives, I think.
I think so too. And I think that's where we're going. We'll see how it all plays out, but I'm pretty, I
What do
think
you
it's a
think of
bright
it like
future.
closed? The Americans now going full in closed models, closed source models, and then Chinese going full open source models. And I've seen reports many times outside of US market, people prefer more. Like businesses
Open.
prefer more open. So what is your thought on that? Do you think US is doing wrong with this?
Yeah. Yeah, of course they are. I mean,
Yeah.
they're prioritizing profits, and if they can close source it and make more money, that's what they're going to do. So, yeah, absolutely, you should not want to go that route. And having these open source models out there, it's forcing the American companies to do some things in the open. If you want to see a, God, I don't want to use this example, but I'm gonna. Facebook's models, I think it's
Llama.
yeah, but having those, forcing those to be open source, kind of like future proofs this to where OpenAI can't run away with it. That's why I like the Sam Altman and why I say that OpenAI is probably going to be defunct here in 5 or 10 years. They're going to burn through all the cash, and they're not going to have a functional business model that actually makes the company enough money to stay afloat. And they'll have tons of debt obligations that they won't be able to maintain. And they've even alluded to it in some interviews that when that happens, maybe that this is the future, and they're trying to jockey the U.S. government to bail them
Oh
out
yeah, yeah, yeah,
whenever it
yeah,
goes
yeah,
under. Yeah,
yeah.
you might have seen that. There's
Yeah.
about a month back, I think, when he made that comment. He's like, "Well, we're so important to the future of America that,
Not
well,
really.
yeah, we were going trillions in dollars in debt, but
Yeah.
we're so important that I think even the government should backstop us. So if we go $1 trillion in debt, the U.S. taxpayers will pay for it." And I was like,
Yeah.
dude, there'd be rioting in the streets here. It
Yeah.
would be absolutely pandemonium. And I, I don't know. I hope that never happens, but that's
No,
why
I
I
don't
said I
think so.
just don't see a future with OpenAI or GPT. But to your original question, I like open source models. I think that is the future. That will be where it heads. I think these models will continue to improve and be more efficient with less. The big problem with many of the closed source models that the AI companies, especially the American AI companies like OpenAI and Anthropic, are falling into is that their models are just throw more equipment, throw more hardware at it, throw more power at it, make the models bigger. And the difference between that and the Chinese models, specifically like DeepSeek and other things that have come out in the past year, is they're doing more with less. They're saying, hey, how about we just like try to limit this down to where it's not using as much resources, and that way if we can target that request, it doesn't need the massive model. And I think more of that development is where the future of AI sits. But again, time will tell. We'll see who wins this or this race.
Everybody feeds from this in a sense, like when they try to throw more at stuff in their circle, everybody wins from that. More data centers, more energy, more I don't know, more cars, Nvidia benefits, everybody benefits. Like it's for them. It looks like win 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 win, but
Uh-huh.
maybe it won't be win 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 win. Because we'll see about that. But I have doubts on will they be able to deliver on the energy, and will actually these AI models, how much are they gonna with the current system gonna improve and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I personally, when Meta was releasing the Llama models, I really thought, like, I mean, because Llama models, when they open sourced it at first, we didn't have a lot of good open source models back then too. OpenAI was pulling the lead a lot then, and I was like, this actually makes OpenAI's business model kind of bad. And if they keep doing it, they're gonna make it. They're not gonna be able to survive to this. But now that Llama, they stopped releasing Llama models, what do you think their next model, Meta, will it be closed model or open model? What do you think? Because I must say, Zuckerberg went all in. He wrote letters. He went into interviews. He told everyone that open AI, open source models is the future, are the future. And now there is this rumors online. I see they're gonna release a closed source model. What do you think?
I wouldn't put it past Zuckerberg. It's hard to say. Like, this is the same guy that spent like $400 billion on the metaverse or whatever it was to make like a graphic that looked like it was from the 90s. And I was like, okay, well, that's one way to spend that much money. So I don't know. It's hard to say. Some of these tech bros out there, especially Zuckerberg, I don't want to write him off, but at the same time, it's like, I wouldn't put it past him doing something really stupid. Anything's possible. We'll see what he comes up with and
I'm curious about
adjust
that a lot.
accordingly.
I'm one of the
If I was a betting man, I probably would definitely bet it would be a closed source model. If it was really good and it could beat existing models, I almost guarantee you he'd close source it. And I think he already put a ton of money into it, and he realized Llama wasn't as good as what was currently on the market. And he's like, well, how do we make money on this and still get a win, or at least get a win, maybe even a PR win, because there's so much bad PR for Meta. All right, well, let's release it open source. And I think that was the play there. But if he actually made a really good model that was actually a leader in the space, I guarantee it he'd close source it in a minute, especially if he could make money on it.
I'm extremely curious about that. We'll see what ends up happening. So you use AI tools yourself now, and like for coding, you just mentioned you used VS Code and other stuff. So a lot of junior devs are terrified that they won't have jobs in 5 years. What is your honest prediction for the entry-level IT job market? And what would you recommend to these guys that are like actually terrified that AI will get all of their jobs?
It won't get all the jobs, but the problem with AI and programmers in general is, I think companies are going to be able to do more with less. So it's not a complete replacement, because you're always going to need programmers, and you can't have just senior programmers without juniors. So you need both, but you're not going to need as many. And that's the truth. So in the short term, you're going to see a bunch of layoffs, and traditionally, just in the past year, you can kind of see that trend. Many tech influencers, I know I follow like the Primogen, and I know he's made a lot of videos like, hey, all these companies are really regretting laying off all these employees. Well, yes and no. Yes, they regret laying off as many. They realize, oh crap, we can't lay off all of them, but we could probably do with half the programmers. And I think that's the happy medium there. So they're going to have to rehire talent, but they're not going to rehire as much as they had. And I think that's the truth. Truth is always usually a gray area or an in between from what you hear online. You usually have two radical points of view, because honestly, having a radical point of view will get you more views and clicks. And that's just how our modern media works. But the truth always lies, yeah, it always lies in between. So if you watch both counterpoints, you'll be like, okay, that's kind of crazy and that's kind of crazy. But I bet you it's somewhere in between, to where, if it's 2,000 jobs that it took 5 years ago to do something, they'll probably still hire 500 to 1,000 programmers to do that job today or tomorrow. So that's the honest truth of programming. So yes, you should be worried, but the profession itself won't disappear. It'll still be needed. It's just gonna not need as much labor.
Yeah, I see. Actually, a couple of days ago, I was talking with a friend on the phone. She was kind of talking with her friends, apparently just worried about whole this political thing going on, and then whole this AI thing, technology, where are we going and whatever. And then I remembered this. There's this popular saying: when a bird falls onto a branch, like, does it trust its wings or to the branch? Of course, it's gonna trust its wings. And what I say to people when they're worried, I'm saying just invest in yourself. Like, you're gonna invest in yourself. You're gonna be better. You're gonna it's more about providing value. It all the time it has been like this. You provide value, they compensate you. So you invest in yourself, you make yourself better, and it doesn't matter what changes, what political change it is, what technological change it is. You're gonna trust your wings because you're gonna know that you are creating value, basically.
Yeah. I love that, and I'd say the same thing. The people always ask me, like, hey, what should I invest in and do all these other things? I'm like, dude, I'm a tech influencer. What do I know? I'm not a finance bro. At the end of the day, what I can tell you is the more skills you have, it doesn't matter if the dollar's worthless here in 10 years. If you have the skills, you'll be able to make more, whatever that currency is that becomes the leader, or whatever it might be. So don't worry about those types of things you can't control. Worry about what you can control, and what you can control right now, and what you know for certain is the more valuable you are, the more skills you have, the more money you're going to be able to make, period. So invest in yourself. I love that. That's such a great saying.
I understand people worrying. I'm not saying you shouldn't worry at all, but it doesn't matter in the end. It doesn't matter what's going to happen, because if you are providing value, you're going to gain money, period, I guess. The more of a massive value provider you are, the more money you're going to get in the end, I think. But okay, how do you use AI in general life other than vibe coding? It could be in content creation too, or like in general, how do you use it?
So we already talked about the coding. As far as content creation, a lot of times I use it for timestamping and just breaking down massive amounts of subtitles. The other thing I use it for is really complex logging for like Linux errors or server errors. Say, hey, I'm getting this error. What does this mean? Sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong. But I always look at it and go, hey, give me some references for this. What else could this be? And then I kind of go back and forth with it. It definitely cuts back on it. It's like a better Google search a lot of times is what I tell people. So in everyday life, a lot of times I might ask it a certain question that I would be normally I'd go to Google 5 years ago, and now a lot of it can just be done by the LLMs and give much more succinct answers. And it's not always right, but typically Google's not always right either. Wikipedia sometimes has wrong answers. So use your critical thinking skills. Don't just blindly trust it, but also don't sleep on it and go, AI's the devil. I'm never going to touch that stuff. It's never going to go anywhere. It's going places, but it's also not something that will be like its own entity. It's not AGI. It's not a living organism that can just immediately get smarter. It needs inputs to do that. And frankly, I think we're running low on inputs these days, and some of the inputs it does get are not great. A lot of times it eats itself, where it will spit out incorrect information and then absorb that same information. So that's how you get hallucinations. And the counterpoint to that is it also depends on the user and how you use it. You can use like I think it's NPCs and other things to do lists, and then target those things and say, hey, these are all the parameters that you need to do and take into account for the search. And then it gets a lot better on the results and
Yeah.
it's a lot faster. So it's a skill thing, but I use it all over my life. And there's definitely spots where it makes sense, and sometimes it just is like, nah, that's okay. I'll just go do it myself. Um, but that's my general use case for it. I'll ask it basic questions sometimes, then I'll be like, okay, give me the reference link for that, and then I'll go finish up on that research.
I think 90% of people use AI wrong in a sense because when AI hallucinates, it hallucinates for sure. By the way, we don't have the Google AI overview of Google search thing in Turkey. They didn't give it us here. I don't know about that. But on Chat UI, I always do check, but I rarely get hallucinations because when I give an input, I specifically tell it to look where and then receive it from there. I mean, if you don't say that, obviously it's gonna spoof up some things, but you need to specify. And even, funny thing, and you can create with N8N and with automations, you can use different agents to do different parts of the tasks, and you can make it correct the other AI agent, which, creates a lot of good stuff. And, let me tell you, we did a great automation of this. My editor, he's just one person, and, back in the day, I was looking over the script and finding good B-rolls for the videos. And then I don't want to do this anymore. And I offloaded to him, but he was like, it's taking too many of my time. Then I thought about this little tool. So First Agent looks at the script, creates different search terms, and then relays off to Tavily API, and it just gets real links, because you need to, when I say it to Gemini or whatever, they don't get real links. They hallucinate sometimes, and I don't want that. I get real links, and then I feed off to the second AI, and it just looks at the script, looks at the links, and then it gives us video links, news headlines that we can use throughout the video, and it gives out like bunch of good, very usable B-roll sources for us, and it's great. Like, you can actually chain these LLMs to correct each other, make it better, or like actually give it a resource that it can, like something like Tavily, maybe it's gonna get you real links, and you need to use AI correct to get correct answers in a sense.
Yeah, I love that, because at the end of the day, you're getting like 95% of the work done by the AI, and then your editor's just taking those links and be like, hey, it got me in the ballpark.
Yeah.
It's 5 seconds off on this link here, but that's okay. Just adjust the front part of that timestamp, and then all of a sudden, there's one short. Here comes the next video, and he's doing these micro adjustments. You still need that human touch at the end of it, because it's not perfect, but it's good enough. And I think a lot of people miss that.
We don't really use the timestamps thing in a sense. Sometimes the script is huge, and we just want the links. We just want the video references that we want to get, in a sense. We don't use the timestamps, but it's just so much of a time saver. Like, normally it would take you 1-2 hours to just get all of that. Now it's 5 minutes. It's amazing. It's really amazing.
Awesome. How long does it take you guys to chop up a video? Like, let's say you're going to take this live stream and make like 10 shorts out of it. How long would that process take?
We don't do shorts from the normal videos most of the time, but these long form videos take a lot. I mean, for this specific video, you don't need to find B-rolls and whatever, right? So what ends up happening, you're just going to cut the unnecessary parts, and then to kind of switch between cameras where I talk or when you talk or widescreen talk. And I don't know, my editor is pretty fast. I mean, he's been working like so.
I'd be curious to see that workflow. I still do all my edits myself, so I kind of go back and forth, and I'm always trying to look for little tidbits where I can pick up a little more efficiency. And I love it. I love it. Yeah.
One thing I can tell, if you want to upload anything on YouTube, the first thing it should be editing, because it takes a lot of time. And I can tell you from this, like, I mean, I've edited for 4 years, I think, and when I uploaded it was like huge relief, because it takes so many time. And also there's this thing too, like, I need to improve in a lot of areas, right? I want to make better videos, better titles, better thumbnails, better scripting, better video ideas, and then better editing. I mean, so you can offload one thing, and my editor, I trained him initially, by the way, in-house, and now he is 10, 20 times better than me on video editing. Because
you just do that one thing. You don't have to do 10
exactly.
other things.
Exactly. Yeah. So,
makes sense.
And people now see it. And now we also use, like for animations and stuff, we use AI video stuff as well, like AI video generators, only for animation and that kind of stuff. And normally it took hours to do that kind of animation, but now it takes us a couple of minutes as well. Yeah.
I love it, man.
And that's people love it too. I mean, I know that some
because you wouldn't do that if you didn't have that kind of efficiency. You wouldn't be like, oh, hey, I got another video coming up in 2 days. I got to get going. I can't spend a day doing a
motion graphic
30-second motion graphic. So you just get good enough and then move on. And instead you can provide more value. So I get it.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. In an interview with another guest in our show here, I asked for 3 tech predictions, and you did couple of tech predictions here as we were talking, but I want to ask you again. So if you look 5 years into the future, what are 3 technology predictions you're confident that will happen? You said 1, OpenAI would go away. Remember that one?
That's a bold one.
It's a bold one, but yeah.
I'll stick that one. That's a good one. We'll take that as number 1. Number 2 is probably we're going to see a more mainstream Linux distribution. I won't probably... maybe like a SteamOS style thing, but it's going to go mainstream and people will have support with that and then they will use it. I'm really curious. I think it will be SteamOS, but not in the traditional way people think. It won't be like a distributed ISO. I think once you get the Steam machines coming out in this upcoming year, I think we're going to see massive adoption of those machines. Because I use my Steam Deck all the time, and essentially they're just making a more powerful Steam Deck that sits on your desktop. And I could see a lot of gamers just going, that's pretty awesome. And then just throwing that on their desktop and just having it. And I can't wait to buy one because I'm like, I love that. It seems like a great consumer product. So that would be my second prediction. I think the Steam machine's going to do extremely well. And then probably a third prediction, I need something a little bit more, I want to pick at least a positive one to end on, and I'm going to pick Microsoft. I think they're going to walk back some of their AI stuff.
Do you really
I hope they don't,
so?
but I think they will. I think they will see here in the next year or two, they will get enough blowback, and I think they will finally cave and go, damn, we were wrong. All right. Let's just stop the whole Copilot and integration business. Let's get back to basics a little bit, and I think they're gonna have to walk back some of this AI slop that they're tossing into Windows.
Maybe on Windows 12.
They have to. They just have to. It's just so bad. It's funny and it makes for great YouTube content. I'll be sad when it happens, but I do think Microsoft will have to improve and walk back some of the AI stuff.
You should title that video when that happens, I'm so sad.
Yeah. Winutil will still be needed, but maybe to a lesser extent. But yeah, I think that'll happen, and maybe that's even tied to my first prediction. I think when OpenAI goes defunct, or I do think that will happen. I think Microsoft will go, okay, the bubble has officially popped. Let's walk back some of this stuff that just doesn't work very well and it's not consistent. That's the other thing about most LLM stuff that people miss is the consistency. When you need something to be 100% consistent, LLMs are terrible. Yeah. When you need something to be 95% consistent, LLMs can work, but it'll never get that 100% consistency without really tried and true steps without LLMs involved. I think is really the winning formula there. Sometimes they make sense, but they aren't good for everything. And when it comes to 100% accuracy, that's just not in their bag.
I mean, you can get it a lot more closer when you are maybe doing an automation like I mentioned, but still, there's always a hallucination chance. Whatever you do, there's always a chance because it's like a text generation prediction machine, basically. It predicts the next word. There's always a chance, but you can get closer.
The problem with LLMs and why I say that is when I use a lot of my automation stuff, if I just need it to bridge the gap between 2 human steps, it's fine. But if it needs to be the end point, meaning it's what it produces needs to be produced, it's terrible because I need it to be 100% accurate. I need it to be consistent, and I need it to do the same thing over and over the exact same way. And that's problematic with LLMs because even though it will get the right answer 9 out of 10 times, a lot of times it's 9 different answers that are correct. And it's different answers each time, and that's no good. And so that's the other thing it does is it's not necessarily wrong, but sometimes it just gives the right answer but not necessarily in a consistent way. And that's just one limitation.
Yeah, but I don't know like what specific example you're saying this on, but it depends on the work you're doing, right? So for example, when you do write a system prompt onto how to give chapter stems, it can give you 100% correct all the time, right? Maybe titling won't be as much as you liked it, but
it good enough, right?
Yeah, good
in
enough.
that respect. There's a margin of error that's acceptable with time stamping or chapters. The thing where it's not good at, where you need 100% consistency, is coding. I mean, honestly, when it comes to coding, hey, go ahead and rewrite this GUI. Make sure you get the margins at 5 pixels and make sure everything's written here. It should be in this color. Well, sometimes it uses the dictionary there to reference it. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it does a different type of thing. Sometimes it does overly nested if-else statements in the conditionals. And then it's just different code every single prompt. I could do that prompt 10 times and I get 10 different results. I like that. I think it's great. It kind of opens me up and go, oh, well, that's efficient. That's stupid. I can't believe it did that. I mean, it works, but I need this one. And I enjoy that variance because it kind of keeps me on my toes and I learn stuff from it. But at the same time, when it comes to actually coding and consistency, I need that 100% accuracy. That's where it kind of falters.
I think to mitigate that to some point, people use like in their AI agents, they have system prompts or like these days, I think Cloud
MCP.
created Skills MD or whatever, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
But
there's planning tools that really help with that and say, hey,
it's not
everything should be
100%
referenced in the
proof.
dictionary. It's not 100% proof, and it'll still have variances in the code.
Yeah,
And you'll see that, but you definitely can cut down on how
yeah,
much or how big those variances are.
yeah,
But the variances will always exist, and you'll
yeah,
see that just because of the nature of the LLMs.
yeah,
I
exactly.
still love them. I think they're a great tool, but at the end of the day, they're not the end all be all.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So let's switch. Maybe we did too much AI talking. People are like, okay, move on from AI. Okay, let's move on.
Fair enough. I'm sorry.
No.
I often go on tangents, and people are like, "Come on, Titus, pull it back in." But yeah.
It's my fault. I'm the one who's asking the question. So, okay. We love Linux on this channel. I've done many Linux videos, and you've done many Linux videos, and we use Linux all the time. But let's be honest, the year of the Linux desktop has been a meme for 20 years now.
True.
In your honest opinion, what is the single biggest barrier preventing the average Joe from switching today? Is it gaming, or is it just habit, or is it what is it?
Probably the biggest thing is there's so much variance and there's almost too many options. And there's no way to fix that. Nor should it ever be fixed, in my opinion. Now, having said that, I still think year of the Linux desktop technically could happen. And even in one of my predictions, I told you how it would happen with like a Steam machine because you control the hardware, you control the OS, and some people would even say that's not Linux. It's a product made by Valve that just so happens to use the Linux kernel, like Android phones use the Linux kernel, but not necessarily. It's a modified kernel. Can we even call that Linux? That's a whole different discussion, but the year of the Linux desktop will have to be a product, and that's how the masses use it, because if you install Linux, tell a person to install Linux, 10 people, some people use Mint, some people use Pop OS, some people use CachyOS, Arch, Gentoo if they're masochists, maybe Linux from scratch if they just hate their life. There's a lot of there's just so many options there. And I'm just saying, when it comes to that, that's where you run into problems because it's not a consistent experience. It also depends on the hardware. Like take everyone and say, you 10 people should install Mint. 8 of them will come back and go, this is amazing. 2 of them will come back and go, dude, it just wouldn't work. For some odd reason, my monitor wasn't showing up, or my graphics card didn't install the drivers properly. And you find out they're using a card from 8 years ago, and that's why it didn't. There's all these little nuances that happen when you have all these variances in hardware, you have variances in the software. There's just so many endless options and different combinations to ever really make Linux a mainstream thing as people know Linux today. But if you consolidate the software piece, you consolidate the hardware piece like a Valve Steam machine would do, you now have a very predictable user experience that everyone will experience the same thing because there is no variance. And that's how you remove the variance and how it succeeds and you get mainstream adoption. And Linux people will hate that. They will go, that's not Linux. Nope, this is blasphemy. No, you got to install Arch. Otherwise, you're not a Linux user. And that's the truth of the matter.
Yeah, but I gotta tell you, with your analogy, I think many people misses this. Like, if you tell 10 people to install Linux, probably 9 of them cannot install it. In a sense, I'm not saying installation is hard on Linux, right? Just people don't know that they're not technically literate. In a sense, they don't know how to open BIOS, they don't know how to boot from the USB, they don't know how to write an ISO file, and they don't want to, in a sense. And people in this space, in a sense, we're like these tech guys live in a bubble that we think most people are literate enough.
Everybody knows how to do that.
Yeah, no, nobody knows that. I know from I have many friends, they have no idea how to write a ISO file to their USB. They've never done it. And it, in a sense, it also is scary to go to BIOS, like all these stuff you don't understand. Am I going to do something? Am I going to break my computer or whatever? Most people can't do that. And I really agree with you on there, once you consolidate everything into a package, then main consumer will just buy it and they will not ever think about installing anything. And that's how you can increase the usage of Linux, I think.
And I think we've even seen that in the Steam Deck.
Yeah,
I think we'll just see it on a broader scale there. Also, I think a lot of people don't recognize that desktop PC users and also just consumers themselves have gone down over time. A lot of people just use their smartphone instead of having a desktop PC. So those average non-technical people don't want to deal with the headache of a PC. They got their laptop maybe for business that their work issues them, and that's what they use for that. But they don't really think about it past work. And they're just like, that's okay. I'll just use my smartphone and then get on with life. And that's the average user, but that's where I see it succeeding. Also kind of where just desktop PCs in general, kind of to Microsoft's point of just they don't care about Windows because, well, desktop PCs itself, Windows has lost market share, but on desktop PCs as a whole, go back 10 years, I would imagine that there's more desktop PC users back then than there is today.
True.
And it's kind of a dwindling population. I don't have the statistics to prove that, but
it's true, though.
From everybody I talk to around me that are normal people, that just
not like us.
Not like us, not technical. Yeah. A lot of them just like, I don't bother with the desktop PC anymore. I don't really need it. Or they might have like an old PC they hadn't booted up in like months because they just use their phone, where they used to be on their PC every day.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that these days phones can achieve a lot of things that PCs could. So it's normal, and people already are using their phones, already addicted to Instagram, YouTube feeds, or whatever. So they do most of the stuff on their phone as well. And maybe now that these triple phones are getting, you can open them, it gets bigger, and
it's like an iPad in your pocket.
Yeah, I've never used them. But it gets better from what I heard.
2 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, it might be even less, but in a sense, Linux, I love Linux. It's just, I use Linux from my whole, everything, basically, and I wouldn't trade it with anything else, but hopefully maybe we'll see the year of the Linux desktop.
Yeah, and I would tell, I think I could see the year of the Linux desktop in like a micro sense as many people see it today, especially from technical people. like I don't know about you, but the one thing I can say about my Linux journey is I've had a lot of heartbreak. I've had like a lot of frustrations for sure. But if I don't focus on that, I really enjoy just using the operating system. It's a joy for me to I look forward to when I get there and I'm like in the morning, I'm like, okay, what are we doing today? This is cool. Instead of the Mac or Windows experience where you open it up and be like, oh, there's an update. Oh no. What? Oh God, no. Later. No, I don't want to do the update. I just want to get on Instagram. No. but yeah, no, and I think that's what a lot of people miss, especially from a technical aspect, is it's a fun. There's this
Yeah.
era of discovery with Linux, and I think for technical people, if you're not trying Linux or at least tinkering with it as a desktop, even if it's dual boot or even in a VM or even a Raspberry Pi, it's just so fun, and it's
Yeah.
it's fun to tinker with, and I think people miss that. And once you try it again, you'll be like, this is great. I can't really use it for everything right now, but maybe.
Yeah.
And then you kind of tinker around, and then there's always a workaround to use Linux.
Yeah.
And even when I'm doing my Windows content, I'm in Linux. It's just my Windows users don't know it because I do all my recording, and there's no borders to any of my VM screen. So everyone's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, he's in Windows." And I've even had people pop on my live stream like, "What are you doing using Windows?" And I'm like, tab over to like my other workspace and be like, I'm not in Windows. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So I do that all the time. Linux is just so much fun. And I think that's what people miss about using computers is the fun. And Linux
Yeah.
brings the fun. Where Windows and Mac, it's a predictable experience. It's fine for work. There's a lot of optimizations to make it not suck. But at the end of the day, is it fun? No.
It's not.
It's an obstacle to get over or
Yeah.
get out of the way so you can then do whatever you're trying to do. Where
Yeah.
Linux is less of an obstacle and more of a, ooh, we can make this do whatever we want. We can customize this however we want.
Yeah.
And I love
That's
that.
an amazing thing. Until last year, I've never used a Mac OS. I've always used Windows and then switched to Linux. So when these M4s got it out, I said, okay, let me buy one. I will try it out. I will make content on it maybe. And then I used it for a month as a challenge. Like, I mean, I'm switching for it for a month to see if I can do everything that I want. I mean, I could, but it was exactly as you described. Like, there's so many obstacles that I need to use third-party tools to navigate around them. And like, for example, window management, I hate it on Windows. Not on Windows, sorry, Mac OS.
Mac.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what I love about Linux is that any sort of window management you want is there. You can just use any sort, right? That's just amazing that you can pick one.
It's the best operating system for window management,
Yeah.
hands down. And Mac OS is hands down the worst because they don't even have like snapping to the left. Like they have this weird full screen view, and you have to install Magnet and all those things that you've already kind of alluded to. And I totally get it. Totally get it.
Yeah, so it was a horrible experience to be honest, but yeah.
I
Yeah,
will say this about Mac. If I could give them one compliment, it's a predictable experience, I would say. Whenever you get on a Mac, you're like, yep, this is a Mac.
This is it.
Yeah, it's all right. Well, they haven't changed anything in here. Oh, well, actually, they moved some stuff in the settings menu. Wow. That's amazing. All right, what are we doing? And then you do your work.
I really
And
like
their update
Raycast
cycle-
though.
Oh, yeah.
The Raycast is really
nice.
good. I
Yeah,
wish we
yeah,
had I use KRunner on Linux, but it's not really a one-to-one equivalent. I
got something for you.
Yeah.
You're
What
going to
is it?
love Albert. Look
Albert.
up Albert. It is the modern, well, it's not quite as powerful as Raycast, but it's like a Spotlight / Raycast alternative for Linux users. Albert's pretty awesome.
I think
love
I've heard this. Yeah, or I haven't. I'm not sure. Okay, I opened it in the next tab. I'll check it out after this conversation. But you know what I really liked about Raycast was it's really sleek. There's a bunch of plugins, and you can really like integrate that piece of software with the operating system itself. It felt really, really good using it. I hope there will be in the future a really good alternative to that. I would be willing to pay for that even, but there's none. as of now.
Yeah. So like what I do to me, Raycast was okay, but I still like my setup on Linux better. Like I use DWM with all custom hotkeys. So the hotkey portion of Raycast taken care of. And then any kind of add-in or drop-in menus and stuff, instead of I gave you a link to Albert because it gives you a more Raycast style, but I use Rofi a bunch, where Rofi gives you that menu, but you can highly customize it to do all kinds of stuff. You can do power down menus, you can do full blown launcher menus. Just sky's the limit there. And then if you're not even using like Wayland, I mean, there's just so many options on Linux. Quick Shell's amazing. That's come out in the past year on Linux, and there's so much possibilities with the QML files. And I've started kind of coding stuff in Quick Shell, and man, I'm just so pumped. Like there's so many different things to talk about on Linux, and so many different projects to explore that it's you can't even touch it. But also
Yeah.
the downside is there's so many projects, it's impossible to know it all.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so
Where I
many
feel
things.
like, yeah, you can get to become an expert in Windows and Mac relatively easily, where becoming an expert in Linux desktop is
Mm,
um, quite
too
a
many
bit more
things.
difficult. There's
Quite a
so
bit different.
many.
There's always a new thing coming up too. For example, Hyperlend is a new thing that hasn't been around for so long, but people like it, and it's a good
Yeah.
uh, it's a good thing, right? But so I want to, while we're talking about Linux, so you recently started working on Linutil alongside WinUtil. And
Yeah.
is this your way of admitting that Linux also has a usability problem that needs fixing?
Hell yeah. I mean, Linux, like, come on, man. There's so many different ways of doing things in Linux. And then,
Yeah.
like, the most aggravating thing that happens to me. So I've used Linux for 8 years as my daily driver now. And
Mm.
the most aggravating thing is I find I fix something and then I run into that problem a year or two from now. And then I'm like, how the hell did I fix that again? And I'll go back and
Yeah.
rewatch my videos, or I'll make an article on my website,
Yeah.
or those types of things. So then I was like, okay, I'm just gonna make a utility, and then when I fix something, I'll take that script and then I'll put it in my utility, and then
Yeah.
anytime I need to fix it again, I just pull up my utility, click the button, and then it's back. And I'm like, okay, cool. So that was
Yeah.
my fix to it. So while not very many people use Linutil, I think we only have a couple thousand stars. Yeah, it's at like 4,700 stars, and that was kind of an interesting thing, and I need to work on that more now that you bring it up. But I do love it. I love making stuff easier for everybody, and including myself.
When it comes to distro hopping, I don't know in your journey how much you've distro hopped yourself. I mean, at some point you settle with something, I guess. But do you think, is it a necessary learning phase for a Linux user, or is it just a form of procrastination? What do you think?
Oh, it's so easy to say both on that. Because I can't say you don't need to do it, because the first year on my Linux journey, I remember I was doing a YouTube video, and literally every week I was reinstalling a different distribution. It was insane. People would be like, "What the hell? You were on Fedora, now you're on Debian based, or you're on Ubuntu, you're over on Arch." I was all over the map. I wish I had a better guide along the way, and I wish someone just told me, "Hey, figure out what you like about each distribution, and then just do that wherever you land. Figure out what package manager you like the most, stick to that distribution, the release cycle, and then just do that." For me, I'm an Arch user through and through, been on my Arch system now almost 2 years, haven't
Mm-hmm.
changed, and that is kind of where I stuck. But
Mm-hmm.
that journey might end in a different spot depending on who you are.
Yeah.
And that's where it's like, yeah, eventually you stop. And at the end of the day, the distribution doesn't matter as much as most new users think.
Yeah.
It's just
Not
a
at all.
starting spot.
Yeah.
And once you learn enough, my distribution, you won't even know what distribution I'm on, because it
Yeah.
looks the damn same, whether I'm Debian, Arch, Fedora.
Yeah. True.
Honestly, my desktop at the end of the
Nobody
day
can
looks
guess.
exactly the same. Yeah, they're just like, oh, nothing changed. And then I'll pull up that and go, wait a second, you're on a different distribution. There's a different package manager once
Yeah.
I go to update the system or something. But
Yeah.
past that, my experience is identical on every distribution now. So
Yeah.
I don't ever distro hop anymore, really.
Yeah, I mean, I use KDE, and if I opened up my KDE screen right now, you or nobody, no veteran Linux user would be able to guess. Oh, okay, this is actually CacheOS because I mean, KDE just looks everywhere the same, unless maybe it's Debian, a little bit older version of KDE, and something could give up. Other than that, I use CacheOS. I'm on Arch Linux as well. I stopped distro hopping, I think. 1 or 2 years ago or something. And I think I specifically like Arch because AUR, it gives you a lot more flexibility on there. But these days, even the places that you don't have AUR, there's Flatpaks and app images and many things that you can substitute around. But I still prefer AUR for the most part, I guess.
Yeah, so for me, when it comes to Arch, I'm the exact opposite. I hate the AUR.
Really?
I whenever I see more than 10 AUR packages, I'm like, I gotta delete something. I can't have more than 10 AUR packages. So I'll do everything in my power to get off of that. I'll use a
Yeah.
Flatpak. I'll use the chaotic AUR or
Yeah.
chaotic repo. Essentially, it's just another repo that you add onto your system, and then you install packages through it that you normally would do
Mm.
through the AUR, but they're already pre-compiled binaries and they're a little bit
Yeah.
better curated. I think you can get in trouble with the AUR from just building too much, and
Oh,
then you
yeah.
run into dependency issues, or someone stops maintaining the package you install through the AUR, or you can even get
Yeah.
malicious code, as we saw this past year, where someone created a Google Chrome dash stable
Oh, yeah.
fork that
Mm.
was a virus from the AUR because it's all community run. So
Mm.
I always kind of minimize my AUR usage,
Mm.
and that's I think better for longevity. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, if you're doing backups, you got time shift or some other backup software
Yeah.
running, you can always
I do.
reverse and you know, as any Linux user would say, skill issue, right?
Yeah, no, it's not the AUR, your skill issue, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, that's right. That's right. It'd be like Titus skill issue. And I'd
Yeah,
be like,
comment
that's
section.
classic. Yeah.
Comment section. Well, I
Did
mean,
not say
I'd
it's
say
skill issue. Yeah.
I also would try to minimize AUR too. It's not like, there is some sort of package on the repository, normal repository, and I go, no, I will use AUR. Not like that. But I just like the flexibility, let's just say. And Flatpaks, I don't know. I just don't like Flatpak updating system for some reason. There's always bunch of extra thing with NVIDIA and a bunch of stuff. It
Yep.
just irks me up, I guess. I don't know if this is the right saying
It's
in
heavy.
English.
It's heavy is the best way to put it. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of bloat to the
Yeah.
Flatpaks, and I get that. I totally do. I agree with you.
I was actually gonna say this. You explained it to me. I was also like, when you said some people come to my live stream, we're in Windows. What happened? How did you change? I was also curious about that. Like, I was gonna ask you your current setup. How do you switch between OSs? But I guess you're using virtual machines for Windows, and your main sole system is Linux. What Linux? What can you explain? Like your current setup?
Yeah. It's Arch Linux with DWM and Xorg,
Mm-hmm.
traditional Xorg. So
Hmm.
very old,
Against Wayland
very proven.
or
No Wayland.
no? Are you against
So
Wayland or is it
oh,
super preference?
against it? No. I think Wayland is probably what most people end up switching to. I mean, almost all distros are going that method. I just haven't found anything in Wayland that I'm like, yes, this feels good. It's minimal.
Hmm.
It's not constantly updating. Right now, there's just so much movement in Wayland, and so many packages keep changing that it's an inconsistent experience for me. So
Hmm.
I kind of stay in like old man mode where I'm like, this old stable package in
Hmm.
DWM that I built and maintained for past couple years. I just love it because it never changes and it's always the same experience. Where sometimes with Wayland, I think I was on like Hyperland for a couple months, and then I was doing something in GIMP, and I was doing a drag and drop, and then it kept
Didn't
locking up
work.
because the compositor didn't like the fact I was drag and dropping into GIMP, and then GIMP was running in Xwayland, and there was some issues there, and I was like,
Hmm.
I'm sure it'll get worked out, but
Hmm.
I don't want to be here while they're working it out. So
Hmm.
that's why I kind of stick on this. But yeah, I understand I'm on the tail end of this. I think 70% of Linux users now are on Wayland. And
Hmm.
eventually, I think it will get
It's
all those
better.
kinks. It'll get better. It'll
Hmm.
iron it out, and Wayland will probably be what most people end up on. But for today,
Yeah.
DWM, Xorg, really, really simple basic thing to where when I do Windows updates or not Windows updates, but when I do updates on here, it just I don't even have to think about it. I'm just like I don't even
Mm,
care. There's no dependencies really to DWM. There's like
mm,
very few packages that ever change, and it works. Now, having said that, my Windows, I always use QEMU, and that's a little bit more of a
mm,
complex setup. I pass through a GPU, an NVMe card, and a USB
mm,
card. So I have bare metal access to writing to
mm,
the drive. I have bare metal access to a USB if I need to interface with something and
mm.
configure a device that's not necessarily Linux compatible. And then obviously the GPU pass through if I want to either do gaming or maybe some hardcore like video edits or something like that using something that requires a heavy GPU usage on
Yeah.
Windows. So I have all that, but I never have to leave Linux to do so. Now,
Mm-hmm.
do I recommend that to a normal person? Absolutely not. That's way too much overkill.
Harder
Just
to
dual
do.
boot. Just dual
Yeah.
boot. Or if it's not something that requires anything, you just load up a VM and then just, you can virtualize it all.
And I think
You
you
don't
need two
necessarily.
GPUs for this, right? For
Yes.
doing the setup you do. But so you have a single machine that has two GPUs. One of them is always relocated to Windows. Then, yeah.
Yes. Yep. I blacklist the second GPU so it never gets loaded into Linux and then it just
What
gets
are those
passed through.
GPUs? What are those two GPUs?
Uh,
Which one do you use for
uh,
Linux? Which one do you use for Windows?
for Linux, I like an AMD GPU because I don't like the NVIDIA modules and how that gets
Mm,
loaded. So I prefer AMD for Linux, and I have a 7800 XT for that. And I
mm.
love that GPU. It's fantastic for my version of Linux. And then for the pass through, I think I had a 2060. And I really
2060.
liked the 2060 because it wasn't very power hungry, but it had good performance. And it
Mm-hmm.
only required 8-pin standard PCIe before they redid all the crap with like the
Mm-hmm.
3000 series and onward, where they screwed up the power delivery and it required a whole bunch more. Where that 2060 is fantastic for a pass through device,
I see. I
and
see.
that's what I use.
I did single GPU pass through back in the day, but you lose Linux in that. Like when you start the VM, you lose Linux, and then when you hang up, you're gonna get back to your desktop. It's nice, but I mean, these days I'm really glad that I don't need Windows for anything, so I don't have to boot up. But I just have this like cheap SSD drive. I have Windows in this, and if I ever really need to get back to Windows for some reason that I don't know, I just booted up this one and I use that, but I don't need it in general. And for Wayland, by the way, I don't know when was the last time you've had that issue, but I have to say, when I was first switching to Wayland, I was also like I had many inconsistent experience. I couldn't do many things. Like sharing screen was a fucking like sorry, share. We don't swear. We don't
No,
curse.
you can. I mean, but hey, this is your channel. I mean,
No,
hey,
no, I know I can't. But
I'll
generally,
drop the
I
F bomb
don't.
a bunch.
Generally, I don't really use words like that in my channel, but it's okay. Family friendly.
No, no.
We're all
Yeah,
family
yeah, yeah.
friendly.
Yeah, yeah. We're all family friendly here. Yeah, yeah, no.
Like I couldn't share a screen. Like that was extremely problematic. These days, most of the problems have gone for me. Only thing that I could say is this kind of still some desktop environments I think solve this, but still you can't global shortcut many stuff, and then
Hmm.
because I think for security reasons, Wayland doesn't allow you to read other windows, whatever you're putting in there, and it's a good thing. But we, as desktop users, are like you need global shortcuts. Like, use it in the end. So yeah, that's my problem. I guess only thing that I may be lacking, but other than that, everything's fine.
Yeah, and I last time I used Wayland, like main Wayland was February of last year with
Hmm.
Hyperland,
Hmm.
and it was a good experience. Like I said, I did a video on it on my channel. They weren't like amazing, like crazy show-stopping things, just like annoying bugs. It was like the drag and drop thing I talked about. There's a software I called Synergy where I go between two different systems and I use one keyboard and mouse. I like that. And there's just like little things that just Wayland hasn't quite polished enough, or there hasn't been a long enough adoption of Wayland to for the software to catch up to it. So
Hmm.
that's
It'll get
why
there.
it'll get there. It'll get there.
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident. I know some people like talk about like Ex Libre or Phoenix and these other
Yeah, I don't.
Xorg spinoffs, but they got a long ways to go, and
Yeah,
I don't have any confidence that they'll ever get there.
yeah. I just. What do you think about Wayland haters?
Uh
Okay, I'm maybe
it's
it's
almost
not an
like a
important.
political issue
Yeah.
now here. So it's like, guys, I don't care what you're using. I just want it to work. That's all
Yeah.
it is. I just need to use my computer, and I just want it to work the way I want it to work. So, but the Wayland haters is like got its like own breed of person, and there's some
Yeah, it's
weird
so funny
people in the
though.
Linux realm. I mean, I've never led any credence to it. And sometimes I get identified as a Wayland hater, and I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, I'm not a Wayland hater. I just there's certain things that it just doesn't work for me. I get
Yeah.
that it works for most people though, and yeah, though a lot of people like just like I'll never use Wayland. It's woke or something like that. I'm like, all right, well you do you, man. That's
Have
okay.
you have you ever read the article or like some sort of text that has been written by Epimage author? Like, he, I think, particularly hates Wayland, and he has just like wrote a whole bunch of like why Wayland is bad, why what's happening, and it's still people are referring to it, but there's a lot of outdated info on it. I just,
Uh-huh.
like I think I would say to any of us, like, I mean, I see this in Linux community, like for example, when this is also in Turkish community too. Some people try to hate on Windows or Mac OS, or like for example, when anybody asks which distribution I should use, someone is always going to say this is better, that's trash or whatever. I'm just going to say that in the end, like you don't need to hate something. You don't need to like just praise something so much too. It's just what works for you, right? And I don't understand why people. I do understand, because I think in a sense people do these kind of things because they personify that thing they're working on, like they think they like in a sense, and then it becomes a personal issue when I say something bad about Xorg, then they take it as a personal attack in a sense,
Uh-huh.
right?
That's how they
I guess.
identify. A lot of people
Yeah.
like really tie, hey, I've used this forever. This is my system. And anybody that doesn't use it my way is just wrong. And
Yeah.
that does exist in the Linux community. Sometimes I get accused of doing this or even going to extremes. But these days, I just try and stick to the facts and just be like, hey, this is what my experience is. Take it or leave it. And I think that's the best you can do. And usually I'll have some kind of experience throughout that time, and I'll usually lean on a bad or a good experience to say this is the best ever or this is the worst ever. It's the devil, and then I usually that's my jumping off point. So sometimes I get lumped in with those folks that are haters necessarily, but don't. The thing is, I will always admit when I'm wrong, and that does happen more often than more often than not, And when I am wrong, I'll go, okay, well, this has changed. My opinion has changed because they've gotten better, and that's no longer a bug that I've experienced. Back when I tried Wayland in 2025, it had problems with drag and drop into X Wayland applications. That might be fixed, probably is fixed, and then those types of things, and you can look back on those videos for that time. That was a bug, and I showed it in the video, but then you try it today and it's no longer there, and then when I use it next, maybe all those things have been fixed, and then I'll be like, well, this is awesome. Now I got VRR, I got 4K support with Wayland, I have tear free by default. I'm not worrying about all these things that Xorg users would have to worry about, and now I have a better system. So right now I'm not a big fan of Wayland, but I probably will be in the future.
From what I've seen, and also I've been in this trap many times before, so I'm always trying to be extra cautious of it. I think the trap of ideology, but when you say ideology, it doesn't have to be necessarily, a religion or a political party or whatever. It can be
Right.
Linux actually, and that's what we're talking about here. You're just idealizing a thing, I guess, and then it becomes an ideology for you, and then you just defend it for nothing. When we say it's Linux, if you just laughed at it, it's funny, but this is kind of like a thing that you also mirror on other parts of your life. If you do it for Linux, you're going to do it for other things, and that's more dangerous in my opinion. I have this kind of ideology, and you're not going to be able to think outside of the box, and then you're just going to limit yourself as a person of who you could be. You could grow tons more than you could. So that's what saddens me in a sense in Linux community. Because if you're doing this ideological thing on Linux, you're going to do it in other stuff as well, and that's sad.
Yeah, it is. It's a limiting factor. I always think of and there's a good meme online about this, where it's this biblical picture where everyone's stabbing each other with knives, and it's like from the Bible, but the caption is just Linux users talking about their distro.
Yeah, great.
And I was like, yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. That's pretty funny.
Moving away from Linux, I would like to ask, what do you self-host?
Oh, self-hosting here, pretty much any kind of media. So, let's say movies, TV shows, those types of things. I don't really do much in this way of streaming services. Music, I don't like Spotify or YouTube Music a lot. So
well, like what do you use exactly? Can you tell me, like, do you use Jellyfin, do you use Plex, or like do you use
Plex a lot, but I probably would switch to Jellyfin if I were going to redo it today. I just have years and years and years built up on Plex, so it's like, all right, I don't want to resend out my sharing link to like my family members that have access to it. And I'm like, okay, well, we're just going to keep it here, and then I can just kind of self-host everything there. I self-host all my telephony stuff, so I have a business phone, and that business phone is specifically just for business stuff, but I don't go through any services for that. So I actually have a PBX in the back here that does all of the telephony stuff there. So that goes directly to the registrar of the phone number and then out to the internet. So I only pay probably 10 to probably 10 to 50 cents per month for my telephone bill and the business side of things, but I have traditional telephone just kind of sitting there on my wall, so I can always call people, talk to them, and then kind of a boomer thing.
Yeah,
all my networking is done in-house, so almost everything. I don't use any residential equipment. Everything's done at an enterprise level. I have about 100 terabytes of local storage, so I don't use any cloud services. Everything is stored locally, so the internet goes down, I don't really even care.
Do you not fear of kind of like maybe some of the, I mean, probably you got precautions, but something happens to the house, or like there's some burns down.
Yeah, so you can do what's called because I come from IT, traditional IT. I do replication. So I had a sponsor, probably one of my best sponsors ever on my channel was Synology, believe it or not. They've got a bunch of hate lately, but they sent me a bunch of enterprise grade equipment, and I just replicate between two of those boxes. And then I have a DR with Backblaze. Backblaze is probably the cheapest disaster recovery you can do. It's cloud per se, but it's not on S3 clouds.
I think Backblaze is providing S3.
AWS S3 is what you're thinking when you think of cold storage that's stored in S3 is pretty good. I think it's about a half a penny per gigabyte with S3. At least last time I checked pricing, Backblaze is actually cheaper than S3. So
it's the same system, I think. Like same.
Backblaze runs its own data centers, its own hardware, everything. So
no. What I mean by same system is like the software-wise, like S3. So S3 compatible. That's how they say.
It's separate data centers. So Amazon have their own data centers. Backblaze has their own, and Backblaze is incredibly cheap. So that's what I use for DR. You can upload, probably 30 terabytes. I think around there is probably about $100 a month. Something like that.
So everything you have in the house also goes through there, but do you also like, okay, one thing then goes to, my mind is working that way because maybe there was some of them are sensitive. Is it any encryption on there when going up?
Yeah. It's all encrypted and
fully encrypted.
There's no way. So they don't have any capabilities of reading any of my data.
Okay.
So let's say if someone was like, I need to see what this Titus is stuff, they pull it up and go, no.
But
Yeah,
then
read
that
it.
100 terabyte for you, then it's like images, documents, maybe also family member access to some like image or something like that, maybe like to photo share against Google Photos, something like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Images,
yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, all that it
Yeah,
shares
that's
directly through
great.
there.
That's my dream to
So
do, but I have 10 megabits of upload. That's that that limits me a
oh,
lot.
oh God, that hurts my soul. Oh, that's awful. Yeah, I have. I don't even want to say. I'm not even going to tell you. It's a lot. Let's just say I had so much that I was like, I'm going to go
10
half
gig?
of that. It was five. It was five, and I
5.
cut it down to 2.5
What I
gig
had to
fiber.
do back in the days, I was uploading my videos myself, but it takes hours because it's 4K. Then
Hmm.
my editor has 1 gig connection upload, 1 gig,
Oh yeah.
and I had to like give it to them, like, please do it for me because it takes minutes for you, and it takes hours for me. It's just huge time waste, huge time waste. Yeah.
Yeah, the worst I've ever done was a YouTube video through my cell phone, and this is back when I was doing a video every day, and I remember I was like vacationing in like Colorado, and I was still doing it. So I had like this really remote connection, and it took like 6 hours to upload
Hmm.
one 10-minute long YouTube video.
Must have
And it
hurt.
was only like 200 megs or something. It wasn't
Hmm.
very much. It was highly compressed. And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Even
It
that
was
to
good
200
time.
megabits, it took 6 hours, really?
Yeah, it was
Well,
insane. It
that's,
was it was a
you know.
really shoddy cell connection. So not
I
even a
see.
landline.
If you had to choose one, what would one software that you're self-hosting would you not give up?
Oh, just my local storage. There's just no way could live without my local storage because everything is stored there. So like when I have a problem with a PC, I could just nuke the PC. I don't care because almost everything's on that
Hmm.
central
Constantly
storage
syncing.
constantly. Well, not even
Oh.
syncing. We use all gigabit connection throughout the entire house. So then if I go from this PC to that PC, it's just an NFS share that's on each one. So if the network goes down, I'm not going to have access to my files. So I don't even sync. It just stores it directly there. So I'm not going back and forth and copying files. The only issue, anytime I would use a sync, would probably be like a laptop where I would actually do that. But even then, a lot of times I still do a share through like a VPN, and I can just connect back to this because this is such good infrastructure that even when I'm remote, I can just like it needs to end up there anyway, so why would I even bother syncing it? So sometimes I don't even sync it and I just connect to the share, through that connection I'm at. And then by establishing the VPN, it encrypts everything there anyways. And I kind of need to do that for privacy or security. And it's just I don't even have to pay for anything because I'm the one hosting the whole VPN.
Great. No, if I ever come to US, I want to come to your house, inspect everything, every networking. We can showcase to people how can they set it up, maybe. But it's good.
Yeah,
I mean,
everybody that's ever showed up here that is a content creator, as soon as they walk in, they'd be like, damn, you're really doing a lot with this little space because it is
really,
literally like a shoebox. They're like,
yeah.
that is a great implement. That's a great use of a wide angle lens
Mm,
because it's about
mm,
80 square feet that I work in.
mm,
So it's a
mm.
very small space. Like I can pretty much almost touch wall to wall just like that. And people don't realize how small of a space it is because I use a little bit of a distortion on the sides, and that wide angle lens makes it look like it's some big spacious room when I'm just sitting in my garage.
I see. But it's good that you could set it up all of what you described. It would be intriguing. I don't know if you have a video about this, but how it would be intriguing if you could showcase, in a sense, all these networking, all these syncing, like not
Oh yeah.
technically syncing, but all that stuff because it's good. I mean, that's my dream. I would have liked to do that, but again, as I said, 10 megabits limits me a lot. Maybe in the
Oh
future
yeah, yeah,
I'll,
yeah.
I'll do better,
Hopefully.
hopefully. In this channel, I often talk about conscious technology usage, and we are fighting against algorithms designed to keep us addicted. Like they literally design us to keep us addicted. And as a creator who lives on the algorithm, how do you protect your own mental space? Do you have like strict rules like no screens after 10 p.m.? And I know You use Fresh RSS to like maybe get away from algorithms better. But what are the things that you do to protect your own mental space?
Yeah, that's one way is don't do like a news site. I curate all my stuff through RSS feeds. That's a good way to do it. But the other thing is if I do pull up whether it's Twitter or YouTube, those types of things, I'd have to basically upload that just as an upload or one-way access to where I'm not checking a curated feed of the algorithm feeding me something. I'm just checking, hey, these are the people I'm following. This is what they're saying. Scroll through. Okay, I got my feed done for the day. Get off. The big problem is if you stick with a home algorithm fed feed, you're always going to get trapped. You're going to just waste hours of your time. So I always think to myself, okay, sometimes I fail at this. Sometimes that algorithm grabs me and then I'm like, crap, where'd the last hour or two go? But I try to just do following feeds where it's people I follow and it only feeds me those people. And then same thing with YouTube. I immediately try and go to like a subscriptions tab instead of sitting at the home page and, learning about how you poop in Antarctica. I don't need to know that. As cool as that might be from a brain rot or a algorithm feed where you waste a lot of time.
That's
Not a lot of value in that knowledge, but sadly, I even fall for that. Spoiler.
Yeah.
They burn it. That's how they get rid of their waste there.
Really? Where was it? Where did you say? Like
Antarctica.
Antarctica. Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
Very cool.
Intriguing knowledge.
Yeah.
You could
Intriguing knowledge.
tell your
These
friends.
are the things
coffee
that
table.
algorithm gods give us. I'm like, okay.
But there is that thing with YouTube. I mean, since we're doing YouTube in a sense as a job, you need to like make your viewer kind of like itchy feeling to click to that video. And even if it's like nonsense, like if you create that kind of itchy, that's what I think they call curiosity gap. They click to it. I have to know how people do it in Antarctica.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Now that I've said it, people are going to be Googling that because they're going to be like, I need to watch that video. And it's that curiosity gap. And if you can deliver on that curiosity, I think that's fine. I think that's a good thing.
No. You have to deliver if you want to create a consistent viewed channel in a sense. That's how the game works. I mean, some people tell me like, could you not be more plain in the titles? I could, and I would like to do that, but they don't reward me for that, and they don't reward my sponsors for that. They don't reward. I don't get more AdSense. So what am I gonna do? I have to play with the game. I'm sorry for it. And I mean, I'm trying to make it obviously not so much so clickbaity. I'm trying to find the middle, but I have to find the middle.
Delivering on what the title is, that's
what
matters.
I deliver it in 30 seconds.
Yeah, if it's something to where people will click on it and you deliver on what you said, I think that's what you have to do. I mean, at the end of the day, you're putting a lot of effort and work to make the video, and the worst thing that could happen is people not watch it. And if you can make a title that more people will click on and more people will watch and more people will like, then it's a win for everybody. Even if people might complain, oh, well, that title could have been labeled using Arch Linux for 37 days, and I found out that System D does this thing. Or you can make something like, a more clickable
Come on,
title.
System D. Dot. Something like that.
WTF System D, and be like, well, something going on with System D. What's he talking about? Let me click on that.
Yeah,
video.
That's the curiosity gap. Yeah.
That's it. Like the title is not meant there to go over 60 characters. You're actually punished over 60 characters. Many people don't know that. A lot of people make these really long, wordy titles and then they fail and they spend hours making that video that no one watched. So that's just one of those things you got to deal with.
For example, this video's title is not going to be a talk with Chris Titus. Won't be that. Probably I'll do 3 variations. One of them definitely probably will be OpenAI will collapse. Something like that. And I'll find those moments of that could get clicks. And I mean, I want more people to see this content because we've been talking for 3 hours now, right?
Yeah, man. For sure. So I get it.
Let's make more people watch it, I guess. But so
Yep.
going back to the question, so you're saying you just curate with RSS, and then if you have to use Twitter or like something else, you're using lists, basically like those features that they provide, and then you go over that as much as you could. I mean, as a human being, you sometimes not able to follow that strictly, but most of the time you protect your mental space like so.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's the best way to protect it. Sometimes I fail at it, I'm only human,
So
and
yeah,
that's just
we all do.
how it goes.
I personally, I have to say, I personally delete Instagram from time to time, and I just even YouTube. Sometimes I just delete it because I know, like at some point, it becomes a second instinct when you're free. I just want to take it and then click to it, and I sometimes delete for that reason. But I use RSS. RSS helps me a lot to only follow the content that I want. But I also, as a content creator, I deliberately go into YouTube discovery feed to see how are other people's pulling off their new titles, because that gives me some ideas on how can I do my own videos. So I have to say, but I deliberately delete and protect myself most of the time.
Yeah, I think the big thing with creativity that many people miss too is you have to be able to be bored to be creative. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but sometimes the best ideas I've ever had is when I was unbelievably bored and I wasn't checking any social media. I wasn't doing anything. It was just, I don't have anything going on. And I just kind of sit back and I think to myself and I'm like, oh, wow. And then some of the best ideas come then. But you have to, I think a lot of people, especially in today's world, you have to be bored to really be creative. I think there has to be that level of boredom somewhere. So sometimes just putting the phone away, going for a walk, super important.
Funny thing is, I think they're also getting bored, but they're getting bored after filling their mind with content bombardment, and that's not going to give you any insights that you just talked about. You're only going to get some good insight, juicy insights, only if you're actually bored while just walking or just looking at the wall or whatever. That's the time that you're going to get juicy insight.
Yeah, originality too. I think that's a lot of people is lacking today. A lot of times there's a lot of copycats, and to be original, think of an original idea that no one else has done. I think that's a big thing too. A lot of people don't are incapable of doing it because all they're doing is just kind of feeding their mind with a nonsense algorithm feed where if they just were to go for a walk where they don't have a phone, they're not listening to anything, they're just walking, being bored, and then going, you know what about this? And then you kind of start to hash out that idea more, and then you're like, wow, okay, this is going somewhere. And then you jot down that idea, and then you kind of, build out the scaffolding, the outline of it, and then go from there.
Yeah, it's so good to get insights like that. And I've read somewhere, I don't remember exactly, but I've read some people never get insights in their lives. I guess it's just they did a scientific study of that, and they found out some people just don't get it. And I think the main reason would be just like you said. It's if you're not bored, if you don't have just time for yourself, you're not gonna get any insights. And I love getting insights. It's just something. It can be about your business. It can be about anything. It can be about your romantic life even. Just gonna come up. Oh, I could do this better, or like I could try this new thing. It's just a really great thing to get an insight. Yeah, gotta get bored, I guess.
Yep, for sure.
Okay. How do you manage your time? Do you use a physical agenda, digital calendar, or is it chaos? How do you balance coding, filming, and life?
Yeah, Monday through Friday, typically. Tuesday, Thursday now are my live stream days. Monday, I'm reallocating to just work on coding offline where I don't do it live. And then Wednesday, I usually do like a day job. That's usually where I fill in. Sometimes that can float to a different day. Friday is kind of like my open day where I can put like meetings or other things or admin work that I need to get done. And then obviously Saturday, Sunday is just family.
I see. So you just have this baseline and you just use maybe a calendar to build on top of that.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, I see.
And I try to stick to that. And then if something needs to work in to one of the other days, it needs to be really early or really late. And then I'll just put it one of those ways. And I usually do some of my best work at night. So sometimes I'll work and do that at night as well.
Yeah, are you actually able to, like, how do you do that? So how do you protect your lines in a sense? For example, sometimes I say I'm just gonna do allocate Mondays to this, but then I find myself wanting to do it on Tuesday. So maybe like you want to do more coding on Tuesday or Wednesday, and then the thing that you're supposed to do on Wednesday goes to Thursday or that
I
kind
think
of thing.
every day should at least have, like that night protected. It's like
Mm,
you never actually scheduling anything for that nighttime. And if you feel
mm,
like coding, code. If you feel like doing something else for the business, do it. Like, what's stopping you? If you're getting enjoyment out of it, then do it. I that's how I treat it. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm gonna just play a video game. That's cool. I can do it at night. I make sure it's those scheduled times during the days is set for that. But if I feel like working at night, I'm gonna work at night.
okay. Okay, but you
I'll still probably
prioritize
work.
first things first.
Yep, first things
On
first.
yeah, okay, good, good, great. I also wanted to tell, like, I use calendar to navigate around stuff. That's it. Like people these days use all sorts of complex stuff. Knowledge management hub that's gonna do automate that. I just use a calendar, Nextcloud calendar, basically. Put it all in there. I do weekly planning on just Monday through full week, my ideal week, and I try to stick it as much as possible. I think, do you think this, like, on YouTube as well, um people are too much thinking about tools on, like, how am I going to plan things?
So many people do that, and I think at the end of the day, you just got to get out there and do it. You either execute or you don't. A lot of people want or they're afraid to start, and the biggest thing I can say is just what's the worst thing could happen if you just did it right now? How good would it be? Probably not very good, but guess what? You could sit there and spend 2 weeks, a month on that same thing, and if it's the first time you're doing it, it's still gonna suck. So just do it. That's the thing
You're
most people
saying
forget.
saying this as a perfectionist guy, I guess.
Yeah,
That means a
yeah,
lot.
yeah. It does. Well, I mean, that's what's worked for me in the past. Like you look at my first YouTube videos, they weren't good.
It's the same for everybody.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and that's the thing is you just got to get over that fear and just do it.
Our viewers has some questions for you, I guess. These are our members of the channel. Müteahhit Çocuk, that's Turkish, says,
Uh huh.
with features like recall, Copilot integration, and ads in the start menu, Microsoft is turning the operating system into a service/advertising platform. For you, what would be the technical or ethical red line that would you make you say, even WinUtil can't say this anymore, I'm completely done with Windows? It's a funny question.
I love the question. One, if there was an ethical or red line, we've already passed it long ago. Uh,
Yeah.
like it's already gone. And the thing is, most people can't leave Windows. As a Linux user, I still feel responsible in my professional career. Almost all of it has been Windows and making Windows less predatory. So the best I can do is help those on that sinking ship. To take your earlier analogy about Windows being something you just keep patching and it keeps getting worse, and I'll just keep doing that until it can't be done anymore, and then hopefully there's not as many people stuck on that sinking ship when that inevitably happens.
Till your last blood. You're gonna
Yeah,
keep doing it.
yeah, I
Okay.
keep doing it. I just keep doing it. I mean, the thing is, I've had so much experience with Windows. I feel like Microsoft isn't competent enough to lock me out of their system. They're not competent enough to actually make a feature that I can't remove. And
Okay.
I know that's kind of a bold statement,
Yeah.
but some of their latest code has been very sus, where
They're
it's
listening
like
to it.
I don't know if they have very many people that really are very good at their job anymore up there.
Mm,
And
mm,
I think I can continue debloating and fixing Windows
mhm.
for quite a long time.
Yeah, I hope so too. Windows users need it, I guess.
Yeah.
Same person asks again, you have a very popular open source project on GitHub, WinUtil. However, in the open source world, there is a chronic problem where developers receive thanks but not donations. Without your power as a content creator, could you realistically keep this project sustainable by just writing code instead of selling open source streams to independent developers? What's more realistic advice could you give?
Ooh, people aren't going to like this answer, but the short answer is no. if I didn't have a social media following like I do, it wouldn't be viable because it's barely viable for me as a solo creator. And I know if I was a developer trying to feed my family through solely that, wouldn't work. You have to do some kind of proprietary closed source and then sell that software through traditional methods would be the best way to make the most amount of money with the least amount of exposure. But since I have such massive exposure, I don't need as much, and luckily there's enough nice people out in the world that do donate or do the offline executable, and you know, I think that's for me it's a good spot to be in, and it's something that I do realize most developers can't follow. It's not a sustainable model where you do need to have a closed source thing you sell.
But then someone is gonna come to comment probably saying, "But you can sell open source software too." you know,
Yes,
but I
yeah.
mean, that's
So the
not gonna.
counterpoint there, to be devil's advocate, like Red Hat has been doing it for years. They've been selling support, and
Yeah.
the problem with selling support is you're selling your time. So that you need to scale to support representatives and hopefully be able to break even, but it doesn't scale. And that's the
Yeah.
problem that Red Hat is. But luckily, you know, they got a big paycheck from IBM and other things in recent years, so they're fine. But I know their masters in the corporate realm are coming knocking, and that's why they get some bad press through open source models, and how many people in the open source realm would use them as a hey, they did it right. Uh, in contrast, I would say they don't do it right. It isn't a very viable model, even though they have been successful. They're the exception, not the rule. Now, having said that, probably the best open source model I've ever seen where they made just a ton of money and they open sourced it would be Quake. Quake open sourced their engine, but they closed sourced the art assets with the game. So that they made millions of dollars on that game, but they left everything open source. So it's one of my favorite games of all time. And I think they did a great job with the open sourcing of part of it and then leaving part closed source. And I think that might be a happy medium to go with that question.
I think, people just don't realize. Like, for example, I know that there are a lot of successful open source projects that gets donates and gets attention and whatever. But there's so many open source projects. Like, but it's not. It looks little, but it actually empowers many other projects. But they don't get attention. They don't get donation, and those people also needs to feed their families, or at least themselves, if not family. So like, and it's just saddens me sometimes. For example, I try to donate the things that I mainly use, but the thing is, I use something and I know that thing depends on something too. But I mean, I can't donate to everything. I just donate things that I mainly use. It's
I
even
think
yeah.
a good benefit to open source, instead of looking at it from a monetary aspect, my favorite thing about open sourcing my product and essentially giving it out for free for those that really want it, is that I do get a lot of community feedback, and I also get a lot of community contributions. So I actually am able to learn and develop software better than most companies because of how quick that feedback loop is. And it's almost like I'm hiring developers, but I don't have to pay them because it's open source.
Yeah.
People will submit bug fixes, they'll submit different things and go, oh, well, here's an idea, and that'll lead me down a different pathway. And that's the beauty of open source. So it's not necessarily, hey, I want to get compensated, and think of it from, hey, I want to be a full-time open source developer. That's kind of like pie in the sky kind of thinking. I think of it as, hey, I can learn a lot. I can use this project, and then maybe use that project to make another project that might not be open source, and you make a ton of money because of the open source project
Yeah.
that might either feed into it, or you can use what you've learned from that open source project to better this over here. So open source has a place, but I'm not a purist. I'm not somebody that says everything should be open source. I do realize at the end of the day, the best, most profitable ideas typically end up being closed source, and there's a good balance of open source and closed source, and there's ways to benefit from open source without actually getting like any monetary return. And I think that's often overlooked by many people.
And I think there is sometimes the middle ground, which, for example, maybe you've heard Entaphotos. which they're like Google Photos but end-to-end encrypted, and it's fully open source. You can just host it yourself, and I think recently they got investment. I don't know, like in millions. I'm not sure. So everything is open. If I'm not wrong, I've read something like that. I might be wrong, but they got some sort of investment. Like you can open source something, but if you get lucky and if you actually provide a good product, and sometimes some people won't want to self-host because it's easier to use the cloud and whatever. And yeah, there's still good stuff, but a lot of successful open source models, but then probably 3 times that failures, and they're doing it for not money, and you need those tools too. That's kind of sad. But yeah,
And it is sad when that happens, but there's also been other success stories too. It's
yeah.
more outliers, but like Basecamp and DHH, I know he got a check from like Bezos for millions of dollars, and Bezos was just like, "Hey, keep doing what you're doing," and just handed him like I think it was like $50 million or something ridiculous. And he
Really?
said, "Just keep developing Basecamp,"
Yeah.
and it was open source, and he was like, "Okay, cool." And
Great.
that's how he made his mark. Essentially, was just got really lucky by some billionaire that stumbled upon it and was like, "Oh, I love this product. Here's some
Yeah.
millions. I don't ever want this to change. Just keep
Mhm.
developing it." So, hopefully that happens to me.
Bezos, you're
Yeah,
listening.
maybe one day.
Maybe after this one gets released,
Yeah, yeah.
hopefully.
Uh,
It's a good tool. We love in your I'm not sure Satya Nadella won't give you that, but maybe someone
I don't think
else.
he can sign up for that. No.
No, not any of previous CEOs of Windows, I don't think, but maybe someone else. So
Yeah.
speaking of DHH, Herkes için Linux, it's another viewer of member of us,
Mhm.
says, what does he think about Linus Torvalds vibe coding? I guess plus, just since you just said DHH, I think he released a blog post. I don't know if you've
I
seen it.
did.
Like he praised and he talked about not being on hate train and using these kind of
Some
tools
LLMs. Hmm.
productively, using it in a positive. It was a positive note, so we can add that too. So, original question: what does he think about Linus Torvalds vibe coding?
Yeah, I think the big thing here is people think it's an all or nothing thing, and like we've kind of talked throughout this entire podcast, it's a good in between, man. You still have to use your brain, you still have to know the frameworks, you still have to know the code that it spits out is good, and you still have to double check it all. But it can save you a lot of time, and I think that's just important to know. It can save you a lot of time, and it's a good tool when used properly. And that's the thing about um, LLMs that most people miss. They think it's just an end all be all. It's not that, but man, it can really save you a lot of time, and it can really increase your productivity when used right.
And yeah, black and white thinking does no good in any area. I think in general in life, don't be black and white. And I think what DHH or like Linus Torvalds is trying to say is kind of in these lines too, in a sense. We're using it because benefits, in a sense. Yeah, that's it. So last member question is Hussein Polat says, what are the 5 tools that benefit him in his daily life in the field of software?
I would say probably for Linux, it would probably be Rofi, DWM style frameworks. I love just really minimal tiling window managers. I couldn't live without them. As far as like notes and those types of things, believe it or not, NeoVim I use for notes quite often.
It's like
And I
ND
use
Markdown.
yeah, just Markdown, just straight up
Hmm.
Markdown. And for my website, I use Hugo quite often, and that's kind of how I like outline a lot of my videos. Whenever I do a video, I'll just throw up a quick Markdown and submit that as a web page, and then I just use it as my script essentially for a lot of my videos. So I use Hugo often. Um, with Cloudflare pages to host, which I still get. I think it's over like 100,000 users or something. There's quite a bit of visitors to my website. VS Code, I've already kind of
Hmm.
talked about.
Yeah.
It's open source and it's been good. And if you don't like Microsoft or you don't want to use a lot of the Microsoft, there's some telemetry built into it. You could always use Codium as an
True.
alternative to VS Code, which is pretty much identical to VS Code. And I like those. Most of like you mentioned Windsurf and also Cursor. They are all forks of VS Code as well. So that's kind of my thought process.
From what I understand, you don't use Windsurf, right? You use
No,
something VS Code that looks like kind of purpley. So that's why I thought it was Windsurf, I guess.
yeah. I have
Yeah.
it's called Cyberwave
Team.
64, I think it is. It's the
Mm,
theme for it, so it
mm,
makes VS Code kind of look like Windsurf.
mm.
So
But
I could totally see why you would think that,
yeah,
because
it's
I
very
just like
similar.
that aesthetic.
Yeah,
So that's why.
I must say, you just said, you could use Codium. From what I know, like you can't use GitHub Premium like GitHub Copilot with Codium. I think that's a
Correct.
problem,
And that's why
unfortunately.
I leave VS Code, because I get the
Yeah.
free Copilot Premium sign in
Normally
and
you would
all
use
that.
Codium then.
Yeah. So I don't use
Ah.
Codium. I just Most users probably watching this that are true Linux people will want to use Codium, because they won't use the GitHub sign in type thing that I do. Uh,
Mhm.
which hey, I get, man, and that's what I would probably do if I was in their shoes.
Yeah. Okay. So these are all member questions, and I have last couple of questions. Like if you could go over fast, or it doesn't matter really.
Sure.
So these are closing questions. Let's just say you've been in IT since 2003. So, what is the one piece of boomer tech advice you learned back then, and it is still 100% true today?
Don't update all the time.
Yeah. Okay.
Any old person that you ever run into that has been doing tech for 10 plus years, you'll notice something. They're not sitting there running updates every damn day. And there's a
Mm,
reason why. Sometimes updates can be a little bit shoddy. So you might want to let them
yeah.
simmer for a day or two and then look at, oh, okay, this might be a good update, and then update. So
Even if
don't
you're using
always
Arch
update.
Linux, right? By the way.
Even in Arch Linux. Yeah, like Arch has released updates where Grub broke, and then all
Yeah,
of a sudden you couldn't boot your system.
I
So
got that one.
yeah, it applies to all operating systems. Mac, yep. There's been times where Mac upgraded to like Sonoma, I think was the one of the latest ones, and I remember that initial install was like a little bit rocky coming from the prior version. So you always want to kind of hang back a release or two. I find, and that gives you the most stability. And
Yeah.
it's probably something I learned from one of my seniors, and I was like, you know what, that person was right.
Yeah.
But it's
And
not
maybe
something you
this
probably hear
one
very often.
will be true, still true 100 years later.
Oh
Maybe. Who
yeah,
knows?
yeah.
What is the most expensive piece of tech you bought that you instantly regretted?
3D printer. I remember I got a 3D
Yeah.
printer, and I printed out like the Benchy, and I was like, this is amazing. And then all of a sudden, like no, this is like 3D printer early days. This has been probably 5 years ago. And
Mm,
I remember it bunching up, and I spent so many hours sitting there cleaning out the nozzle, switching things, and trying to optimize the flow. And at the end of the day, I never produced anything that's like really, wow, this was
mm,
amazing. I'm so glad I did this. I was like,
mm.
nah, I probably bought the wrong 3D printer, and I regret going with a cheapo knockoff model. And it caused me a lot of heartache and pain, and a lot of time wasted that I ended up just essentially throwing it out. I donated it to somebody, and I was just like, yeah, you take it off my hands. I don't need to be tinkering with this damn thing anymore.
And on the flip side, what is a piece of hardware or software under $50 that had the biggest positive impact on your quality of life?
Probably, and this is hilarious. I hated this software when I first tried it. GIMP. I was a Photoshop guy. I was a Photoshop guy through and through, and then I finally learned GIMP, and the switching point for me was like 3 months of using it, and I learned ScriptFoo, and they have like a new ScriptFoo V3 style of macros. So I have certain things I do with anytime I manipulate images, and I just macroed all that through ScriptFoo and GIMP, and now I just press one button, it does it all, and then I'm like, sweet, there's my drop shadows with all my text and everything spaced right. Print to PDF or JPEG. It takes me 3 minutes to make a thumbnail, and I'm done. And I think
Mm.
that was such a huge like life changer for me. As
And
far as
GIMP is
paid for
free.
software, yeah, it was free. As far as paid for software, jeez, when was the last time I got good software I paid for?
Can be a hardware too.
Maybe my MacBook, actually. I would probably say like believe it or not, the M4 MacBook Air was I got it on sale for $700, I think it was here. And those laptops have fantastic standby states. And if you need something really mobile with a huge battery life and just get some work done on the go in Mac, that would not be a bad purchase. I don't regret that purchase because sometimes you just need a laptop that'll last a week or two without plugging it in. And Mac does the standby states the best.
I told you before I don't like Mac OS, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But this M4 stuff, even with M4 Mac Minis and with the laptops, yeah, they did a great job on hardware part, and it lasts longer, as you can tell. And also like with the Mini as well, the one that always plugs in.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so small and it does many things. Like I have this huge computer here. It does the same thing with that, really, like even in editing and rendering.
It's
It's
just
great.
very power efficient.
Yeah,
So
power
like I
efficient.
know it's just going to sip power. It's not going to be a workhorse. I don't really use mine very often, but when I do, I'm like, oh, this is nice. I get it. But at the same time, I have a Xeon workhorse sucking down 400 watts next to me. I got
Two
64
GPUs.
threads, two CPUs, two GPUs.
Uh,
I'm just an absolute monster. So obviously, I'm gonna use
yeah,
that because that's just cool.
obviously.
But if I had to pinch pennies, I'd be like, damn, I don't think I could afford the electric bill for that
Yeah.
compared to
But if
compared
you
to
have to
this
go
guy.
outside, travel somewhere, right?
Yeah,
Like it's just
yeah. And you
obviously,
might have inconsistent power supply and you need it to
yeah,
last 20 hours. I mean,
yeah,
Mac's pretty good at that.
yeah, for sure. So finally, a classic last question of this show. I know I know you don't watch this, but I ask this to every guest on my show. What is a book, movie, or game that significantly changed your perspective of life?
I loved this is going to be kind of a niche book, but it's called The Millionaire Next Door. And it's a great read. It's a very small book, actually, but a lot of people think like the flashy cars, big houses, and all this stuff, and the people wearing like designer clothes are the people that have the most wealth. And this book tells you really where the real wealth lives, and it's not that. And it was really eye opening to me, and I was like, wow, it really redefined my version of wealth and who's actually wealthy in this world. And it's a great read, and it's very very quick. You could finish it in a day, and I highly recommend everybody read it because especially in the world of social media where you're taught, hey, all these people driving like sports cars and those types of people have the money. They're professional athletes or they're just superstars in what they do, and the truth is kind of wild, and it's completely separate than what most people's general impressions are, especially if you aren't born in that type of environment, which, I come from a very modest family. So I wasn't. And it was a very eye opener for me. And I was like, wow, I'm glad it was profound on my life. And I'm so glad I read that book.
I took a note on that for me as well. Any movie or game that you could say also kind of shifted my perspective?
Idiocracy. It's one of my
Idiocracy?
favorite movies.
Really? I haven't
Yeah,
seen it, I think.
it bombed in the theaters, but it ended up being almost a democracy of how
2016?
no,
Sorry,
Idiocracy would have been earlier. It was a Judge film, and it would get over,
yeah,
hey,
2006. Sorry, 16, not 16,
oh
2006.
2006, yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
think that was it.
yeah.
It's usually a yellow cover.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah,
has
I found it.
Luke
Yeah,
Wilson on
Mike
it. Yeah,
Judge. Yeah,
yeah, yep. And that's a great film. At the time when it released, it was kind of not very widespread. I remember seeing it, and I was like, "This movie's amazing." And little did I know I was watching a documentary. And this is supposed to be like 100 years in the future, but a lot of what happens in the movie has actually already happened, especially in American politics. And it's it's a great movie. It's I don't know if it was profound, or change my perspective on anything, but it definitely is worth a watch. And I would recommend it. You'll get a good laugh.
Okay, okay, got it. And what can we expect from Chris Titus next in the upcoming into 2026, 2027? Have any plans?
Yeah. So I'm really working heavy on software development. I absolutely love it, and I'll still be making YouTube videos here and there, but I think my primary focus will be just software development, making different things for see what sticks. As with everything, I'm probably going to release a whole bunch of stuff that fails, and then there'll be one or two things that get polish and really make it big. I think the biggest thing that most people will see in the mainstream is the offline utility and the executable that people buy will be getting released, where it will be considerably faster and a little bit different than the PowerShell script. They'll both still do the same thing, but the .NET framework and everything I put in the back end of that utility that should be released probably, I'd say 2 or 3 months down the road, will be pretty impressive to run on a new system. I can't wait to show people that.
We're waiting the videos on that, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And absolute last question, guys. I keep saying last, but I've heard this before somewhere, so I want to ask. It just came to my mind. If you and I were to die today or tomorrow, what would be the last message that you would want to give to people, to the next generation, or to tech guys, or to whoever is watching us?
I always tell my kids this, and it's a great one. I think I even said it maybe even earlier in the show, but you have to fail to succeed.
Mhm.
Failure is essential.
Mhm.
So get out there and fail.
Yeah.
That's all I gotta say.
Absolutely great message, I would say, because people are afraid to fail, but as you said, counterintuitively, the most successful people are the ones who are the most fail, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And
yep.
The earlier it is, it's better, because you've got not many things to lose. Maybe after, for example, you said you're in 40s, you got more, like you got daughter, let's say you have a family,
Yep.
you have many more things, and it's harder to take risks. Sure,
Yep.
it is doable, but to some extent, but it is harder, especially if you're younger. It's like absolute take risk. I mean, what are you
Yep.
afraid of, right? What are you gonna lose?
Yeah.
People.
I was
Yeah.
way too conservative in my younger years. There's so many times I should have, if I knew now back then what I know now, it would man, I would have started so much earlier. But it's all about perspective. At least I got going. And the first thing you do probably is going to suck. Just own up to that, accept it, and then just get it done. And then the next thing will be better than your last thing.
Yeah.
And you just keep following that formula, and before you know it, you'll be more successful than you ever dreamed.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I found in life.
But it's great to see that you're having fun in life, and you're kind of radiating that too. It's so nice. It was lovely meeting you.
Have fun, man. It was great talking to you. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Thank you for coming, by the way. And it's been like 3 hours and 40 minutes, and I really appreciate you giving that time and sharing your knowledge with us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, anytime, brother.
Thank you for anyone who watched this far, I guess, right? And we'll see you on the next videos then. Goodbye.